Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Dark Art Society podcast. I'm your host, Chet Zar. This week, I'm talking to Travis Louie. Had a really great conversation with him. He's an old friend from the early days of the LA pop surrealism, whatever you want to call it, art scene. And like me, he's still here grinding it out. So it's always great to talk to Travis. He's a great guy, great artist, and we had a really fun conversation. Lots of talk about the old days of the LA art scene and a little bit of history. It was interesting. It was fun. It's always fun talking to Travis. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. I'm gonna try and cut down the intro song. I'm gonna cut down these intros to the podcast as well. I'm gonna try that. Seems like I don't know. It all goes on for too long. Um, okay, yeah, it's episode 272, and the date is January 31st. I'm recording this, 2023. I'm exhausted. I don't know if you can see behind me. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see this painting behind me. I've been painting. I've been grinding every single day of January, getting these studies done. I owe my patrons from Patreon. And then I had to get this painting done. It's 30 by 30 inch skull flower painting for the LA Art Fair in February. And then I got sick. Not COVID. Luckily, I still haven't gotten COVID, which is great. But maybe because I'm all vaxxed up and boosted. Also because I don't go anywhere. But anyway, I'm starting to feel better. Got this painting just about finished. I think I got another day on it and it'll be done. And then I can move on to the next thing. It's just such a grind. So I'm exhausted. As if you can tell. I don't know if you can tell, but I feel wiped out. Anyway, that's it. Yeah, if you want to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/darkartsociety and you can get entry into the secret Facebook group. You get the podcast a day early and other benefits. If you want to support my Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/ChetZar. And I'm posting everything I work on as I do it, as I paint it, as I sculpt it, and all my sales and things go to patrons first before they go to the general public. So when I make new studies and stuff, patrons usually buy them up before people outside of the Patreon get a chance to purchase. Let's see. I guess that's it. Skull Shop. Oh, if you join at the $5 level, I think this is going to be the last episode we're doing this. But if you join at the $5 level on Patreon, you could get entered to win a skull from Skull Shop. That's SKULLSHOPPE.com. And you could this skull in this painting behind me is I used a Skull Shop skull for my reference. They make great skulls. And so I guess we'll do the drawing next episode next week. And I guess that's it. I feel like I'm missing something, but it's probably just my exhaustion. So anyway, let's get on with it. Travis Louie, great dude, great artist. Here we go, and I hope you enjoy it. What's up, Travis?
Hey man, how are you?
Good. Long time no see.
It's been a little while.
Yeah.
It's been a little while.
When's the last?
Yeah.
How long? When's the last time you were in LA?
It's been 3 years
Wow.
because of the pandemic.
Oh yeah, right.
And I haven't been out there since 2019 was the last time I was out there.
Damn. Yeah. Before everything went to hell.
Yeah. I had a show at KP Projects, and then all of a sudden, within a few months, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
Just a lot of crazy.
You live kind of like out in the boonies though, so you can kind of be untouched by the madness in a way.
Yeah, luckily in the town I live in is a very small population. So unless somebody comes in from the city, where it was really bad down there.
Right.
Obviously, you've seen the news reports, and those conspiracy theorists who don't actually live in the city have no idea.
Yeah, right.
You
Yeah.
know, like I'm like, that's cool and all. You think that, but unless you're actually there, you don't really know.
Yeah.
It's like Sam Fuller says, right? He
What?
always says when someone says something, he always goes, "Well, were you there?"
Yeah.
Because if you weren't there, then you don't know. You don't know.
I remember when that was first starting, when the pandemic was first starting, like the first couple days, I got a text from Damien Eccles, and he's like, they're fucking, you know, uh, he showed me a picture because he was in New York, and he's like, they got pictures of uh, like refrigerated vans for storing bodies because they were running out of space in New
Yeah, it was it
York.
was it was pretty bad. I had a friend of mine who he worked he his business was a funeral home. So he
Oh,
was collecting
really?
the bodies. Yeah. So he ran out of room like really quickly. He just ran out.
Oh my God.
It, it was hard.
You have a friend who runs a funeral home?
I've had a few.
I've never met
Uh,
one person who's run a funeral
yeah.
home.
I know some very strange people in this life. I don't know. It just worked out that way. I don't know. You know. Yeah.
There's my wife was watching there's a ask a mortician YouTube channel. This woman who's a mortician, and I was thinking, man, I really want to see if she'll come on the podcast because I find that stuff so fascinating. Like it's really kind of a morbid curiosity I have.
It is. A friend of mine. I remember. We all did art. We were all working at Pearl Paint. There was an art store that they had a chain, and they were all over the United States. They had some in Los Angeles, if I remember
Mm-hmm.
right. And we all worked there. And he was a pretty good sculptor, and he ended up. That's where he ended up working.
Oh, sculpting
Because
people's
sometimes
faces.
sometimes things happen,
Yeah,
and you want to have an open casket, and you need someone to do some stuff, and he was the guy,
yeah,
as and you only have photographs to work from at that point. You can't
right,
cast anybody. It's like
yeah.
you get to a point because the human face doesn't have perfect symmetry. If it did, we'd all look like fucking aliens, as you know. That's not you can always tell, when someone is like something's not right.
Right,
When people do plastic surgery, very often they're adding symmetry for some reason. I
right.
don't know why you would do that.
Well, they say that beautiful faces are more symmetrical. That's I don't know if that's true, but
Yeah, but I mean, it's sort of like, okay, let's say you come home and your cousin is at your house, and there's something funny about it, and you're like, oh wait, is it really him or is it somebody pretending to be him? Because the symmetry is off. It's close. Sometimes when people get plastic surgery, very often they look like mimics.
right.
You've seen the movie Mimic, where it's like roaches or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
horror movie, and I'm like, yeah, it's like no, I'm really your cousin. Like no, it's not. That's not it.
You mentioned sculpting, being a sculptor and sculpting people's faces back after
Mhm.
you know uh, having facial trauma or whatever, dying from
Uh-huh.
gunshot wounds and stuff. And I remember when I was a kid and I was getting into makeup, um, and I'm sure you know this, but a lot of people probably don't know it, is the wax that makeup artists would use, like throughout the ages up until they started using foam latex prosthetics
It was
was,
called derma wax,
well, it was called mortician's
right?
wax.
Mortician's
Yeah, it
wax.
was
Yeah.
mortician's wax, and then it changed to derma wax because I think it wasn't such a
Yeah.
advertiser friendly name, mortician's wax, but that's what they use, like to build up noses and stuff for
Yeah.
movies, and
I used to have a container of that,
yeah,
actually. Yeah, when I was in middle school.
it's great stuff.
It's just the thing you did when you're like a 12-year-old kid, and you're buying, monster magazines or whatever, and
Yeah,
you're looking at all these, it's usually Rick Baker and Dick Smith first, and Rick Baker, and then everyone else, Jack Pierce, and
yeah,
you're looking at all these makeups from history of movies, and you're just like, you're just curious. You want to try it out. You want to see if maybe you could do it.
Oh
So
yeah.
my friend wanted to do that, and then he's in the funeral home business. So
Wow, that's a
so
trip. I
right,
remember
how do you?
I remember Dermawax was, or yeah, Morticians Wax, Dermawax. It was the same color as the palm of my hand. It like, and
Mhm.
it blended almost perfectly. And so I remember one time I took a little dab of like rouge, like a red color, and I put it on my finger, and then I put a little subtle layer of Dermawax and blended it carefully. And it looked, you couldn't see anything. And then I walked up to my mom with a butter knife and I just sliced it open, and it was just, it looked perfect. It was like it sliced my hand open, and it was like red underneath it. And that was like then, then after that I was like trying to put blood tubing in, and see if I could get it to like cut and then bleed with a little
Oh my
little
God.
food color bottle
Oh
with
my
a
God.
tube, and I would squeeze
Did,
it.
did you do all the tricks? Like you would go to the sporting goods store, buy a machete, and then you would cut the
Yeah,
shape, you
I
know?
never did that, but I did, uh, um, cut off fingers, and you buy those nails that you could stick through your finger, the fake nails that, remember those?
Right. hmm
There was all that cool
What about
stuff
the
in the
what about
70s.
did you do the finger in the box like in that
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don Coscarelli movie? It was I can't remember
Phantasm.
pronouncing it. Phantasm. Yeah, you got the finger in the
I
box
did.
and
I forgot about, and that's funny that you mentioned that, the finger in the box. That was amazing. I used to do that like perfect. I used to get that perfect, so it looks so real in there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Now these
that's
are all tricks. These are all like when you're a little kid and you're learning about all this stuff.
it's like that's
Yeah.
one of the cool things about the 70s. It's like there was so much of that weird stuff going around. So it's just word of mouth. People would do the finger in the box trick. Word of mouth. It's just like you'd
Oh
get it from
yeah,
your
yeah.
older brother, and there was all that weird kind of like joke shop. There's joke shops and
Oh,
magic
joke
shops that had like
shops.
the fake barf and all that stuff. I mean, all that stuff is so cool. And now
And
it's
if you had
like,
money, if you had some money, you
yeah,
could
yeah,
buy
right.
those masks.
The
The back of
masks. They had the
famous monsters of
masks.
Filmland.
Yeah.
You get the who was it? Tor Johnson. The Tor Johnson mask was everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know who did that. Is that
Those
Don
Don
Post
Post.
or
Yeah.
Don Post? Yeah, good stuff. Oh,
There's a website now called vat19.com, and they sell a lot of that old cool weird stuff.
wow.
Yeah, plus like new weird stuff. But now it's, it's a I don't know. It was, now it's nostalgia. Before it was just like a thing that was around. Anyway, what a weird way to start the podcast. How have you been? What are you up to?
I just keep painting.
Yeah.
I just keep. I mean, that's what I do. I keep painting. I keep teaching at SVA, and the illustration department is really interesting because technology is infiltrated
Yeah.
uh, the classes, and I understand it because it's industry standard. Everyone's working digitally now. I get that, but I feel like there's they're losing a bit of touch.
Oh yeah,
Because
you must have a different perspective as a teacher who's teaching students how to draw. You see the, probably, I imagine you see the results because you've been
I
doing
certainly
it a
do.
while, so you've kind of seen it as it's become more prominent, digital
Oh
art.
yeah, oh yeah. I
So
mean, you're watching just something as innocuous as the way they hold the tool in their hand is different.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then what things that they sort of fixate on when they draw the figure. It's just kind of like, oh, really? That's all right, And some of it is out of like almost like they get really like tight when they want to draw something. I don't mean like drawing it realistically. I mean like they literally are looking at the figure and they're holding it so precious, and
Mm.
I have to get them to like, hey man, it's all right. Just forget that it's a person. Pretend it's something that's not important,
Mm-hmm.
and then just let it happen.
So what
Just
do you think technology has to do with that?
short attention spans.
Oh,
I'm these guys are all on their phones, and I have to. In the beginning of that, I used to have to collect all their phones and put them in a box
really?
when they came to class. Yeah, because I was like, look, I'm in the middle of doing a lecture. You can't be on the phone looking at whatever the social media at the time. This would have been 2010, so I don't think TikTok was a thing yet. They were actually looking at Facebook and Twitter, I guess, at that point.
Mm-hmm.
2010. That sound right?
Yeah, I'm
Um,
my I have no memory.
people still had not everybody had an iPhone. Some people still had, believe it or not, Blackberries. There were Blackberries in the
I had
classroom
a
too.
BlackBerry.
And, so they were just like looking, like, oh, they're doing
Sucked.
something. And I'm just like, guys, you know what? I the model's right there. Draw the model. Get
Yeah.
off your phone. Be present. Not to mention that these classes are expensive. I mean, if your parents knew that you were
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
fucking off in class on your phone, they'd be, you're missing
It's
out, man.
probably, it's I hate to say it, but because I'm just sounding old. We're both going to sound old because we are old at this point. But it's like
Yeah.
it's probably one of those things that they'll look back, or even now maybe they appreciate it. Like I'm glad the teacher takes the phone away because some of these people are like literally addicted to their phones. If they have it, it's really like distracting because they always want to look at their phones. So it's probably like they
Yeah.
probably are glad that you're doing that, or if not now, they will be when they're fully grown adult old people, I guess.
Well, it's hard because the information is moving so
I
fast,
know. Yeah.
and things are developing so quickly, and they don't have an understanding of what something is. Even the terms of art, but that's always been the case, right? Art is always this. I've said this before. It's this continuing conversation,
Right.
and you know sometimes one idea, it just takes hold of everything for like a
Mm-hmm.
minute,
Yeah.
and then eventually the next thing comes in.
Like AI right now.
Right now, and even that is kind of, so what.
Yeah.
I,
It's
I'm in the all right.
faded a bit.
So okay, whatever. AI, okay. At the end of the day, it's only digital.
Right.
AI doesn't make marble sculptures. You know what I'm saying? It
Right.
doesn't make, AI doesn't make an oil painting. Like if someone hired somebody to do a formal portrait painting, they're not gonna be like, well, this guy can use AI. Let's get him to do it. That's not how it works.
Right. Right. Well, I mean,
You
you could make the
yeah.
argument that eventually there will be marble sculptures made from AI because I'm
It's too
sure,
expensive. It's just too expensive. I'd
but
rather, if you're
I,
going to spend that kind of money on that technology,
yeah,
wouldn't you
yeah, yeah.
wouldn't you use it for something more practical, like surgery?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But
You know,
I'm just saying you could
yeah.
make the point. I'm with you. I'm just like
Yeah.
playing devil's advocate here
Oh, sure,
because there is a
sure.
guy that he was doing this a few years ago that was using AI and robots to make paintings. I don't know if you've seen this guy on YouTube,
I have seen it. I have seen
and
it,
it's
and
like the paintings are like they're fine. They're fine for that style of painting, but it's just it will probably yeah. Who knows if someone's going to do that because there's not really I don't think enough of a demand to put that kind of research
exactly,
into making
exactly.
marble sculptures or paintings. But
Yeah,
even if that did happen, this stuff does take a while. I'm not worried about it. It would take a long time before it got to the point where it's like perfect oil painting from AI if it ever happens. Like I said, it's probably not enough of a demand. But I feel like that's kind of like one benefit to being physical media artists is that
right.
we
But it'll get worse. It'll be like robot Chet, like Chettron. I am Chet. I am painting. I am painting the Chet paintings.
oh man,
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm wheezing. I'm getting over this cold. I've had this bad cold. It's not COVID, so that's good. But
Yeah, no, you got
nasty
to take
cold,
care of yourself.
nasty
Yeah,
cold.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So
But I'm not worried. I'm not really right at the moment,
I'm
you
not
know,
either.
because even the lawsuit that they're having right now.
Yeah, I wonder what's gonna
So
come of
the
that.
lawsuit happens. Let's say the AI companies lose. Uh, I don't know what it's out of the bag. What happens now? What's the next thing?
Yeah.
Then they only use things that are copyright free, but
Well,
they'll
that's
still
what
be
they.
making it.
Right. That's the argument is that the reason there's not a music AI that does amazing music in the same way that it does amazing art is uh, because the music industry has more protections and copyright protections in place that they only used copyright free music. So the music kind of
Right.
sucks. The AI music kind of sucks. Whereas with with the visual AIs, they used everything, even photos and people's personal pics and
Well, even
everything.
even some of the copyright free stuff that's out there that's in the public domain is pretty good.
Yeah. But I
I
mean,
mean,
but it's
that's
like it maybe it's the nature of music or something, the reason it's having an issue. But my understanding
right,
is that
right.
it's just it hasn't had the equivalent of 5 million images to train it, or 5 billion image,
Of course.
whatever it is, five
And
billion
of course,
images.
we don't have that kind of money behind us.
Yeah,
If
exactly. Which is kind of the shitty
I
thing.
can't sell the catalog of Travis Louie images for like $200 million like Justin Bieber just did with his music. I can't,
Right.
it's not going to happen. I'm
Yeah.
lucky to get a ham sandwich for it. You know what I mean? That's the way it is. So our art is funny like that. You
Oh my
know,
god. That's how you know we're for real. My position has always been this. It's like the richer a person is, the less you can trust that what they're doing is true or from the heart. Like someone like Justin Bieber or someone, I don't know who even the contemporary musician pop stars are today. It's like when there's so much money being made, you know that they have a formula, and they know how to make money on this formula. And then there's artists like us that are just doing our thing and making it work and not getting rich from it. And so, why else would we be doing it when we could be making more money in other ways? It's like that's how our artwork is pure, is that is because we've been doing this what 20, 30 years or whatever, and we're still not rich, but we're still doing it because we are into what we're doing.
well, I suspect even if we were rich, we'd still be doing
Oh
it.
yeah,
Like
yeah, for
I
sure.
don't think that I
I'm
don't
not.
think that would change.
I
I
would
mean,
I would take the
I would
riches.
gladly welcome, exorbitant amounts of money
Oh
spent on my
man,
stuff. That would be great.
I tell you,
But
man. I'll tell you. Because I'm still. It's always a grind.
yeah,
It's all every month. It's a grind. I had like a year where it wasn't like that, where I did all those tool posters.
hmm
And let me tell you, when they say that like, uh, money can't buy you happiness and stuff like this. Sure, money can't buy you love, can't buy you happiness, but I was able to get my life so much more organized, and I was able to be healthier, and I was less stressed when I had more money coming in. It's like
of
there's a
course,
really, and it's like, yeah, I know it's
of
of course
course,
it's an obvious thing,
of
but
course.
people make the excuse for, you hear people saying like if you want money, that it's like a bad thing. It's like you're greedy, you're materialistic. It's like, no, I just want to be able to like not sweat it every month and take care of myself, take
Well,
care of my family. It's
that's
like,
true. Most regular folks, uh, they are only 2 months away from poverty.
yeah,
And that's anybody. Like
yeah,
if they lose their job 2 months later, they're in trouble.
yeah, and
That's
that's
most people.
most people.
Most people. Most people aren't 2 months away from being millionaires either.
Right.
So it's like that's the way it is.
Yeah,
It is frustrating, sure. Well, we just got to make the best of it. I don't. We have no power in terms of controlling legislation that would make things easier. We don't have
yeah,
that. Yeah, you go on social media and scream like and say these things, and I don't know how much control you have over that. It's complicated.
yeah,
It's very complicated.
yeah,
If we're lucky, we get by and we keep doing our stuff. There's a lot of variables in this business that determine any kind of success.
mm-hmm,
It isn't just. And I think it's funny, which is very interesting. I always hear people talking about how talent. Talk about talent. The word, they hate
right,
that word. It's a dirty word. Talent. Well, if you just work hard, and it's like, well, there is something to talent. Talent is, but by definition, it's just you have a slight advantage over
right,
the average person.
right,
But some people have more than a slight advantage.
right,
There are people out there that really are that amazing.
right,
That no matter how hard you practice, you will never catch up to them.
right.
They do exist. There's not many of them,
No, no.
but
That's
they
like
do exist.
Frazetta. Frazetta I always bring up
You
as
know,
the example of like
yeah.
a prodigy. He was like a child prodigy.
He's a little more. He's what I call I can't verify that he had a singing voice, but I know he's one of those kinds of people that is like I call them like a taskmaster, you know, named after that character in Marvel Comics, where if he just sees somebody do something, he could do it.
Right.
It's a little weird. He's a weird guy like that. When he was alive,
He was like a great baseball player. And
yeah, not only could he paint, but I understand he had an arm like a cannon.
mm-hmm.
He could throw a ball. Like if he was in right field, he could hit the spot.
Right.
You know, that's amazing.
Yeah,
yeah. And in fact, they from what I understand, they were trying to get him to join the minor leagues. That's how good he was.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and
crazy.
And back then, they didn't pay baseball players what they pay now. Right. So, luckily, he existed back then. If he existed now, he'd be playing for the Padres right now. He would have drafted him. You know, he wouldn't have been. You know, I guess his team was the Dodgers. I think the Brooklyn Dodgers would have been his team. That's about when he was around.
Right.
In New York anyway. But yeah, he could do anything. He was like there's a few people I've met that are like that.
Yeah.
That just there's something about them. They could you just feel like they could do anything.
Yeah. If they have an interest in something, they can do it.
Oh yeah. You know. But the trick is, you know, you just gotta you have to pick the thing that you want to do, and that's the thing that you do. I think that's any of us, right? So that's why we paint the pictures.
Yeah,
right? We've always been, you know, or some kind of art, right? Because before you were in special effects, so
that was the thing I wanted to do for you know, since I was 12, and then when I did it for a long time, I was like, okay, I want to paint. You know, I don't want to do. I just got to the point where I just didn't feel like I could really go further with it, and at that point, I was looking at all these painters like Brahm and Mark Ryden, and I was like, man, maybe I should be a painter. You know, I was really thinking about that for a while there.
Well, you have the skill sets. I mean, when you have to paint the prosthetics to match.
Yeah, there was like definitely like a lot.
So you understand color matching, right? Yeah. You know, the lighting conditions have to be a certain way. You know,
color mixing, and I learned a lot from sculpting because it was, you know, I did a lot of sculpting, so I was able to see how 3D forms look under light and shadow and things like that, you know. And I did 3D. I was into 3D animation, and I learned a lot from that with like texturing and specular highlights and things like that. I never heard of a specular highlight until I opened up a 3D program and learned all that stuff, or diffuse layers, and it was just breaks it down almost like in a I don't know, kind of a breaks down the look of things in a way that I'd never thought of before, although I'm sure someone who was trained in art school would know all that stuff.
Yeah, yes and no. Art school's weird because you have a whole generation of art teachers that don't know how to paint, and it's amazing.
Right.
I mean, when I say this, I don't mean that they don't know how to paint, like, oh, this is a paintbrush. Well, you know, I mean, like, they don't understand something as, you know, as kind of basic as how light affects everything, right? And how light is pretty much form, right? And color is temperature. Right. And if you were in one of their classes, they would never explain such things. They would just they would give you a list of paints and materials to go buy at Pearl Paint or Sam Flax or you know, at whatever art store is around, and Jerry's Artorama when they still had a brick and mortar place. You know, you would go put your list, and you walk into that store, you buy all the stuff, you go to class, and you think they're going to sit you down and tell you, yes, if you mix these two colors together, this happens.
Right.
Oh, yes. If you break this down into 10 values.
I've heard that they, you know, I've heard of,
they
teachers that don't. They just kind of say
they don't know how.
Right.
They don't. They had some success with the academic side of art, in that they can write these wonderful thesis statements about their work and describe with great earnestness what it is that they are doing, what sort of philosophical knock joke the work is about, you know, and but then if you ask them, well, what about this? How do I get this to look this way? And they just go, I don't know, figure it out, just paint. And then you kind of go, oh, that's kind of terrible, you know. And that's why you have people that don't understand, you know, how to paint, and yet they have master's degrees, which is hilarious to me. So they spend all this money so they could talk about art.
Yeah, which is
But yeah, which is
terrible.
absurd to
So
me
dumb.
because, well, I mean, I get it because, as I was saying before, the conversation of art has changed. So this is where we are, right? So weird things happen. You go to Art Basel, and there's a guy with a banana
Yeah.
and duct tape on the wall, or maybe there's some other guy doing it. It's like but they're making a statement. But the problem with that kind of work is it doesn't resonate.
Right.
It doesn't go beyond, like, it loses its context the minute you take it away from that location.
Right. But on the okay, again, I'm going to play devil's advocate a
Yeah,
little bit because
sure.
I've thought about this a lot. Um, okay, so if art is supposed to reflect, I mean, one of the things they say about art is it's kind of supposed to be a reflection of the time it was created in,
Uh-huh.
and that may not be necessarily always true, but I think in general people feel that art represents the time it was created in.
Well, they
Usually,
certainly like to say that.
yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
if that's necessarily true because art is many things.
Yeah. Right.
Some art is done for ritual. Some art is
Right.
done,
But in a
so
historical context, you could say no matter what style, what the subject is, it was created in this certain time period.
yes,
And you know what I'm saying? Anyway, so it's
yeah.
like, so, okay, if art reflects a time, the time reflects the greater society, then
Mhm.
maybe this shitty banana taped on the wall crap art, the meaningless, vapid art that's, it's a joke. It's a joke. Everybody knows that's a joke. The whole reason there was any kind of talk around it is because it's stupid. And that's the thing. It's like something stupid is going to sell for $1 million or
Well,
something.
the idea was that, what can we do to draw attention to ourselves?
Right.
So what
Okay.
is it that we can do and
This is
we're kind of there right now.
this is my
Right?
point. This is my
Yeah.
point. So if culture sucks now and everyone's, it's all about social media and posting selfies and dumb vapid shit that lasts for a week and everyone forgets about it, trends on TikTok and blah blah blah, maybe art is reflecting the culture with that dumb banana art. So maybe art is kind of doing its job. It's just we don't like what it's telling us.
Well,
Or
I
I
don't
don't
know.
like it.
I don't know if that's necessarily the thing, and the reason why I say that is that, art, like I said, art is many things to many people,
Yes.
and some people make art because they just want to, go through a process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other people make art because they want to make beautiful things. Other people make art because it it it's a connection to something in whether it's ritual, like, maybe they go
Mm-hmm.
to church and they want to make religious art, so it's many things. the what complicates matters is you have this hierarchy that suggests that only this one area is
Yeah,
important, everything else isn't important,
definitely.
which is not great, because it's almost like how religion is over
Right.
the world. You have
Yeah.
people who believe so much in their religion, like a guy like Kirk Cameron, for instance. He believes so much in his religion that he should be smarter than this. He's not stupid. He should know that there are other cultures all over the
Right.
planet. So you can't assume just because you believe this
Mm-hmm.
that everyone else should believe what you believe. That's a mistake. And I think the big art world is like that. You have this huge hierarchy, and they're like, well, this is the guy right now. We should all be. Meanwhile, there's
It's.
somebody someplace else
I
doing
know.
something
It's
else
such a
it still has
scam.
value.
It's such a scam. It really is disappointing, especially you know, because we do art because we love it and we believe it. We
Right.
love it. That's the bottom line. We love art. We love to create art. It's in our blood. That's the bottom line. I think for 99.9% of artists I know, it's
Well,
like
if we're lucky in our lifetime, the things that we do will matter to somebody.
mm-hmm.
But as soon as money gets involved, it changes things.
Yeah.
In music, for instance, if something is truly great and transcends a period, we still know about it now because we're aware people still either they want to listen to it, or they want to actually play that music. They want to they want to buy an instrument and they want to learn how to perform that music, right? And music that sort of loses its its popularity very often just disappears with time. I don't believe that Jay-Z is going to be singing Stephen Foster songs with like a straw hat and a fucking cane. I just don't think he's going to be doing that. That doesn't seem like something he would be doing because that was really popular, in the 1890s or whatever. But right now, not so much. So, and that's okay, So just like you have things that go in and out of fashion, if you think about like Sean Cassidy on the cover of like Tiger Beat magazine, there's a reason why he's not on there right now, because that was a long time ago. He's like I think he's like a producer now. He doesn't he's still in the film industry, does things, but there's a moment for one thing and then the next thing, but things are allowed to fade. But in art, if money is involved, it's not allowed to fade.
Yeah.
It'll be in textbooks. People will keep talking about it and keep telling you how awesome something is.
Yeah.
Not because it really is awesome, but because somebody paid for it.
I know. That's because that's when big money's involved.
Oh yeah.
That's the difference, But it's again, that's just a reflection of how fucked up what's the term? Inequality, income inequality. Right. It's just across the board. If it's everywhere, but it's just especially upsetting and disturbing to me when it's in the art realm, just because because we love art and we're doing it because we believe in it, and we all know all these amazing artists that are just kind of getting by, and then you've got people who make the bullshit that are millionaires. Well,
I mean, it's their marketing's worked.
I've told the story before. I know someone who worked, because now a lot of these big artists will hire effects shops to do their their stuff.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah,
totally aware.
So I know a person that worked on one for this artist who shall remain nameless until after the show, and then I'll tell you his name. He was literally said, I don't know if he overheard him or if he just told him, it's bullshit. The meaning is bullshit. The art is bullshit. He was like saying it, this guy. Or girl. So he was like admitting it. It's like, it's bullshit. Right. It's just like, that's the game. And it's like, that's the opposite of why we're doing it and how we feel about art.
It's hilarious to me that some people require paragraphs and paragraphs of explanation to convince us that that what this person is doing has value. When the minute you look at it, just a regular, you just look at it and you go, well, what's going on? And you go, if I'm not interested, I just turn away, Right. It's not for me.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's sort of like you go to a restaurant and you look at the menu and then, you see what's there and you go, I really don't like to eat that, so I'm not going to order that. And that's, you can't get more honest than that.
Right.
But can you imagine if you went to a restaurant and somebody said, you have to order this meal because it's so awesome. And you order it. You take a bite and it tastes like, dumpster bark. And you're like, oh my God, I think I'm going to be sick. 911, where's the door? But, but then he says, no. You're supposed to feel that way. And I'm like, but that's not, and there's a lot of art that's like that, where someone says, well, no.
Yeah.
That pile of glass is art.
Right.
But if you take it out of that location and you put it next to a burned out building, it's just a pile of glass.
Right.
But in this building with these wonderful lights It's not.
And that's,
Context.
and that's, yeah, and that is legit too. There is
Oh, sure, sure.
it's all about the context, and there is, when I first started out as a painter, I was like, all of that conceptual stuff is just stupid bullshit. But I kept an open mind, and I really kind of was trying to seek out different conceptual artists and people that didn't do their own work, but it was about the idea.
Hmm.
And I've come to understand that it really is a legitimate form of art,
Of
and
course it is.
it's done, and it can be done in an amazing way and have the same effect as like an amazing oil painting. Now, the thing is, uh, it's, you have to like really kind of seek it out to find the real stuff. But that could be said for anything, I suppose.
Of
You
course, of
know,
course.
like that. I saw that Gerhard Richter documentary, and
Hmm.
I was like that. He just said it was like, there is no meaning. It's just a painting. I like these. Basically, I like painting like this with these squeegee things and using these colors. And it wasn't like, and I was like, oh, I get it. I get abstract art. That's like enough. That's enough that you think it looks cool. That's enough. You know.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah. Right. If it
There's
does look,
different.
but
Yeah,
but seeing it in
right.
that context, I was able to go, oh, okay, that is kind of cool. I get it, and it's like it clicked. But up to that point, I would have just thought it was just stupid. But that's and what's that woman, Martina, what's her name, Brahma something, the artist is,
Abramovich.
yeah. The artist is present. There's a documentary on her called The Artist is Present. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen the documentary, but I am aware of what she does and what she
It's
has done.
that was
Well,
like,
you know,
she's an example
um,
of an artist I would be like, oh, what a bunch of bullshit. And I watched that documentary, and it sold me for sure. Like, that there was some really amazing things she did with that weird
well,
performance art.
there's a significant amount of conviction that you have to have
Mm-hmm.
to do that.
Yeah.
Is to really believe. If you don't believe in what you're doing, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's
Right.
anything, by the way. If you
Right.
don't believe in what you're doing, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We just figure it out. It's like that guy doesn't believe in what he's doing. It doesn't matter if you're a guitar player in a band, or if, like, we can tell. We can
Right.
tell.
Yeah.
We are the receptors of all this sensory information, right? And so it's what we see, and of course, there is the taste. Taste is a whole other thing, right? I
Mm-hmm.
remember
Right.
I remember being a little kid, and it's the first time I had ever seen Tiny Tim. It was on the Dick. It was on the Dick Cavett show,
Yes.
and there's Tiny Tim, and he's performing. I'm a little kid, and I just like, what the hell is this? And but then even as a little kid, I thought, well, you know what? It's okay. He's on TV. Somebody likes this. I just don't like this. I mean,
It was. He
that's the
was a.
way it is. So I get it now,
Yeah.
but when
Yeah.
you're a kid, you don't know why. Why is that there? There's a, it takes a minute sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and a lot of art is like that. A lot of art truly is an acquired taste.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
But some of it's very strange, because there was a period in time where the fine art instructors were very, very dismissive of like people that did illustration work, or people that designed the world. They they were very dismissive of it, and I'm like, well, no, that has value.
Right.
These people that design these marvelous things have value. They're not just some guy making a picture, or
Right.
some guy figuring out how aerodynamic an E-type Jaguar can be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're like, no, it's not fine art. You know what, though? When you see that car, something in you says something, and I'm sure you've
Right.
seen it.
Yep.
And nice British racing green. It's a 1960s vehicle. It's beautiful. It's aerodynamic. The guy's name is Malcolm Sayer, is the designer of that.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful stuff. But yet they don't talk about him in art school. They don't
Right.
mention him. And I'm like, why are we talking about that guy when this guy made this thing that everybody, and I'm not talking like ice cream or some shit. I'm talking about this. It's not automatic.
Right.
I've never driven one, so I don't really know. But I know that you can that you could take a 1950s car and make it go real fast, but it's a fucking brick on wheels, basically. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But this thing that he designed, it's aerodynamic. It could take the turns a little better. I mean, a lot better,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just as fast, but smoother transitions, right? You don't want to be staring no brick. That's not in these cars, But I mean that was the point, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's important to recognize that instead of just poo-pooing something because it's not in your, it's almost like this weird kind of tribal thing. It's like, well, it's not part of my tribe, so you
Yeah,
can't.
yeah. That's the point I always make about, I guess, contemporary blue chip art is that it's not legitimate or it's not good. It's that it receives preferential treatment as the best of what art is. And it's like, it's not. There's no fucking way. You can't even say, when it comes to art, you can't say what the best art is. Not, it's not subjective. I don't believe it's subjective. But what I'm saying is, you can't say that's the best that art is. Art is like kind of this infinite thing, I think.
It's not the best. It's just what is the moment, and what is in the zeitgeist at that moment. It may
But it's
change.
not.
I mean, it's sort of like it's like fashion, It's like at the
Pisses me
at the
off.
time, those fucking acid wash jeans were the shit. Everybody was wearing them. You don't wear that shit now. How about those fucking bell
It'll be
bottoms?
back around. Oh, a lot of that stuff.
Things come
In
around,
fact,
but
I think the
you
acid
know,
wash thing is probably coming back.
straw hats and fucking cane. I back to that again. It's like toot tootsie. I'm like, no, I don't think no one's doing that.
People,
No one's doing that now.
right, okay, okay.
They might later.
That's a good point. That it's more about what's current. But it's, I don't know. It seems
But
to
they
be
won't let
held.
go. Is the part that I have trouble with is that they can't fucking let go.
Yeah,
They can't
yeah.
let go. They got to be like, no, it was
And,
valuable then and it's valuable now. And I'm like,
right.
relax, man.
I still don't
It's
buy.
okay.
I still don't buy it though. As what is of the moment. It's what is that art is what's of the moment, out of the rich trust fund kids that went to the right art schools and met the right people and were allowed to get in these certain art shows and were accepted by the art establishment on that high level.
Well,
That's what's happening.
that's a totally different thing. That
Right,
is
but that's not.
that's it. No,
But that's the stuff
that's
that gets
true.
in. That's the stuff that
That's the
gets in.
stuff that
It's
gets in. I mean, you
completely
look at most
bullshit.
of the work that's at the Whitney Biennial, right? They have this big show, all this work about, I don't know, I bet 80% of those artists you'll never hear from again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Their work does not their work doesn't have the potency of an E-type Jaguar.
Right.
Like today, if you saw that car, and I keep going back to that, if you saw that car, or Firebird, look at that thing.
Yeah.
You can't, you see it and you're like, oh yeah, there's something there.
Right.
But a lot of that work in that, and maybe that's a little unfair. Maybe it's a little unfair because you can't drive those paintings, so you will never know. You'll never know. And be like, I can't drive that installation.
But
so
that's the thing. That's what's at the that's what makes art is that intangible thing.
Yes.
That good art has that you can't explain. There you can't. There's just something beyond human explanation that makes the Jaguar resonate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's funny. I was not arguing, but I told somebody something that they really got upset when I told them. We were talking about art in the 20th century, right? And I told them that the true art form of the 20th century was film. It's not painting, it's not sculpture, and I'll still hold to that because it really came about in the 20th century, film. Right? Now, I'm not saying every movie is fantastic, just like not every painting is fantastic.
Right.
But more people, I'll argue that more people have seen Raiders of the Lost Ark than Guernica.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the way it is. You know,
Yep.
I mean, it's a lot, right? It has more of an impact.
Right.
You know? So is that what people are interested? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's for a mass audience. I do understand that, but it does a lot for people.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. Now, if you think about those giant blockbuster paintings that people used to make in the 1700s, 1800s, big giant paintings.
Yeah.
That was their Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right. It's true.
You walk in, you'd see this big the Raft and the Medusa. Are you familiar with the Raft and the Medusa?
Yeah.
That's a gigantic painting.
Right.
And it's breathtaking if you see it in person. It's hanging at the Louvre.
Mm-hmm.
A little pricey right now to get on a plane, but I mean, if you get a chance, it's a beautiful painting. Not just it's not about how well it's painted so much as just the presence of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In this giant room and this big, and that the experience, right? So painting took a hit in the 20th century because it has to compete with film,
right? Photography,
right? And that's you can't escape that. Film is still here. Film still has the power, although it's a little weird now because I find that we're sort of things are changing over a little bit. So I don't know where it's going to go.
I think it's video games. Video games is going to be what films were in the 20th century. Because like now they're making TV shows from video games, and it's video game. I think video games make more money than movies do now.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I was shocked when I heard that because like I'm old and out of touch, and I don't really play video games because I don't have time. But apparently it's bigger. It's like it's for kids. It's like for me it was movies growing up, and for them it's video games.
Well, there's a significant time investment in a video game that a movie you don't really have that. You see it and that's it. You go and you can see it a few times in the theater, or you could see it when it's on cable every now and again. But a video game, oh no, there's like hours of just, unless you're really good, then maybe not so many hours. But I mean, some of these players are pretty amazing at what they can do. But that has a lot to do with storytelling because you're immersed in the story of the game.
Right.
When you watch a movie, you are an observer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're hopefully if you're watching the movie and all the pieces are working, you are engaged in what is going on the screen, right? And everything around you disappears. You're sitting in the dark and just completely immersed in what's happening on the screen. That's great. I just, I don't know if, video games are even more so because you have to be immersed.
Right.
You're in it.
Yep.
So that's probably why. That's partly why.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's still storytelling. It's
right.
Still storytelling.
Yeah.
Except you're in the story.
Right. Yeah.
You're in the story.
Yeah. That's pretty cool when you think about it like that. Yeah.
But if we're lucky, what you and I are doing will still have value. We don't know. We just keep painting them. I have no idea. No. I hope it works out. I hope that people like my stuff. I hope that I could reach those dizzying heights that some of these guys. There's maybe two artists that I know of that are that came from our world that are in the blue chip world, and you know who they are.
Mark Ryden and
Todd Shore.
So, yeah,
those are the only two. Everyone else we're all just like struggling.
We're all just maggots.
Yeah. Well,
no, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
but I mean,
that's who I hold them as like they're aspirational figures to me as career wise and money wise. To be honest, it's like I want to make that kind of money before I die. I want to see what that's like. I want to see what that's like because I know what it's like to be broke. I don't like it that much.
No, I don't. It's like you're just keep running, trying to do things. I think about the magic trick in art when I first started. Right, that's what art was for me, was a magic trick.
Mm-hmm.
Right, So
Yeah.
I'm looking at Maxwell Parrish. To some extent, I'm looking at even a guy like Dean Cornwell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I know what he's using, and I know how but I don't draw like that.
Right. Yeah.
I look at you know Hans Holbein the
Mm-hmm.
younger. I don't know if you look at there's a painting he did called The Ambassadors
Mm-hmm.
that's in England somewhere. Uh, it's a beautiful painting. There's so much going on, but there's this attention to time that's in that painting. You
I'm
know,
looking it up.
and it's pretty amazing. And then there's these painters that made
Yeah. It's crazy.
impossible sort of paintings for their time. A
Yeah.
guy like Jan van Eyck. Jan van Eyck's paintings, if you consider when he was making these things,
Yeah, I know. That's the other.
nothing was like that. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
so
unbelievable.
I look at this stuff and I think, okay, that's like it's like an extra gear that these guys have.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anybody today that is like that.
Can you imagine being back in those times and seeing a painting like that? How amazing that would have been. You know what
It's
I
mind
mean?
blowing,
Because
right?
because
Yeah,
like
because nobody can paint like that.
nobody
Literally,
could,
nobody could. You
nobody
know,
had they were living in and there was technologically nothing going on, and then you have this guy who could make this. It must have been like these people must have been like magicians, like real magicians
but
or wizards to be able to make something like that.
sometimes when me and the fellas get together and we're talking about art, we're 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 sort of like magicians in a way, talking
Mm-hmm.
about our tricks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I I think of going to have you ever been to the Beyond Brookledge?
I don't.
Uh,
Was
what
the
that is? It was at the hotel in you know, the one that Bob Self
Bob's
put that
thing? Yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
went to
yeah.
it
It's
one
that
year.
place, and it's kind of amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Although I just imagine all these magicians and what they talk about, what you know about all the different tricks, and they all seem to know how each other does their tricks.
Right.
Sometimes there's a show on television right now called Fool Penn and Teller,
Mm-hmm.
and again, you get the sense that those two guys have been around. They just know whatever how everybody does something.
Right.
You know, there's only so many ways to skin a catfish, right?
Right.
So with painters, it's like that. Uh, but mostly illustrators because we're the last ones that are still actually doing the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you know, technology changes, right? Even in paints are made differently,
Mm-hmm.
brushes are made differently. You know, there's all kinds of things that exist now that didn't exist back then. You know, liquid didn't exist in like in the 1700s. That wasn't even a
Right.
thing.
Yeah. Wasn't even an
So
option.
if you think about like how do you make this thing dry faster? How do you what do you use? Like what you know? So
Yeah.
there is that, right? And they're always experimenting, and sometimes experiments don't work. There's some painters from the 19th century whose paintings are cracking because they were experimenting too much with different
Mm-hmm.
mediums and things. I think of Waterhouse, those
Mm-hmm.
Waterhouse paintings
Oh,
in
really?
England. Yeah, they're really cracked, like horribly.
Wow.
Now I don't know how much of that is just from being poorly stored, but there's definitely, but they can't all be like that. It's got to
Right.
be. There's got to be another reason because what everybody that had a painting decided to keep it in their closet next to a can of solvent. I don't think that's what happened. You know, that's not. You know, you know they put on a dehumidifier in the room and here it is.
Yeah.
We got to get everything crackling. You know, I don't think that's the case because why would it be in all his paintings the
Right.
crackling thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Odd Nerdrum supposedly was experimenting it with. I forget what it was, but his painting started melting, and
that's
he
horrifying.
had to he had to like, and his paintings are huge, and he had to
Yes.
I think basically repaint them for
Are they? They're really thick, right?
yeah.
Application.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you familiar with Lucian Freud?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
His paintings also thick
Mm-hmm.
like that. I
Yeah.
kind of wonder about his paintings.
Well, I think Odd Nerdrum was doing, I forget, because I talked to a student of his, and he was telling me, we were talking about it, and it was something, I forget what it was he was using. some medium or something that was like I don't know, but it didn't work.
Was he sworn to secrecy? Like, did the next time you saw him,
No, 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 no,
he had
no,
an eye patch and like cigarette burns on his arm? And you're like, oh
no,
man, what
no,
happened?
no,
I shouldn't
no.
have said anything. I shouldn't have. The master. You know.
No, it wasn't like that at all. It was just I just forgot what it was.
Mm.
Um,
And
yeah,
then speaking of secret formulas, holy shit! Are you familiar with J.C. Leyendecker paintings?
yeah, yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Uh, it's well, what's weird about those things? I saw an exhibition of those paintings at the Norman Rockwell Museum, and I could not believe the condition they were in. They're just like perfect.
Oh, really?
And there's something about the paint that he used where you almost don't see any of the brush marks,
Yeah,
but you
yeah,
see the shapes. And
right.
I remember reading somewhere that there was some secret formula that Joseph Leyendecker told. Well, actually, it wasn't Joseph. It was his brother because they were twins, right? Uh, it was Frank. Frank Leyendecker told Norman Rockwell, "Here's the formula. It's this much Standard Oil, this much this, whatever.
Mm.
And if you mix this perfectly, you add it to each paint, the brush strokes, and this will happen." But Norman Rockwell never shared the secret, and it died with him.
Oh,
So
wow.
nobody really knows what those guys use. I'm sure trial and error. If it's really that important, a person could figure it out.
Yeah, I'm
You
sure
know?
it's like self-leveling kind of paint that doesn't
Yeah,
hold any brush marks.
but it's pretty amazing if you look at
Yeah,
these things up close. It's pretty remarkable. Yeah, if you ever get a chance, I'm sure there's got to be some exhibition somewhere that has
yeah,
them.
yeah.
Keep your eyes open if they come around.
Well, maybe
I,
at the LA Art Fair, there's always like there's like a
oh, that's right. In the back of the LA Art Show, there is a guy. There's a booth that has he collects illustration work from
yeah,
the Golden
yeah,
Age,
yeah,
and but it's like weird off paintings, not the really good ones, just sort of
right.
like the grade B and the grade C. Like maybe there might be a Leyendecker there. I know I've seen Rockwell's there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've
So
seen.
there is
Yeah,
that.
last year they had. I think it was last year they had an Escher exhibit, which was
Oh
pretty
no shit!
cool. Yeah, get to see some Escher original sketches and stuff, and
Wow.
pretty awesome. Yeah, we'll see. It's always the LA Art Fairs. It's always like 60% stuff I'm not into at all, but there's also there's really good stuff too. There's great. Jeremy Lipking is always, or he seems like he's in. Well, I guess that's Arcadia, that Arcadia Fine Arts.
Yeah, that's
They
Steve
they always
Diamond's.
they always
Steve
have
Diamond's place. Yeah.
amazing painters in there. But there's even like weird contemporary stuff that I like that surprises me. There's always some
Well,
cool
what about the
stuff.
really weird sculptures where the guy does sculptures that are skewed? You've seen those.
What do you mean?
They're super duper realistic, but they're like pancakes. If you
Oh
turn
yeah,
like
yeah, right.
you've
Yeah,
seen those,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't
Those are
remember the artist's name.
those are cool. Yeah, I've seen those there.
Uh, they're as big as Ron Muke
Right.
sculptures. They're huge, but they're
Yeah.
just really weird that it would change,
Yeah, yeah.
on the side. Because that was one of the things about sculpture that I always liked was being able to walk around it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when you're, especially when you were doing the effects, right, and you had to sculpt something, you got to be able to. What does it look like from this angle? What does it look like from that angle?
Mm-hmm.
Is that you can see if it's
Yeah.
right or not? You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, you want some symmetry. You don't want it to be perfectly, but you want
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, too much too much symmetry, and it's like it's like a robot. It's too
Right.
perfect. Shouldn't be like that. It's like, can you pick out the real Oscar Goldman? Steve Austin's like, it's that one. And he's like, oh, it's the one that's sweating. I don't know if you remember that
Of
episode,
course.
$6 Million Man.
That's like
Um,
with ZBrush. The way you sculpt in ZBrush is you put symmetry on because it takes half the time because you,
right.
you do one side and it's doing
Mhm.
this other side at the same time. And then afterwards you go in and you turn symmetry off and then you make it natural by losing
Oh yeah. I
destroying
mean
some of the
that's
symmetry.
because real humans don't do that.
Yeah. Back
We're all
we're
just a little off,
we're
a
back to
little bit.
symmetry again.
Yeah. Well, it's important. It's important. It's a big part of what we do. Being able to recognize when things seem unnatural, right?
Yeah.
The real the natural world is full of
Yeah,
irregularities,
yeah.
And I always tell my students to be concerned with their shapes. If every shape is the same size, you lose some realism,
Hmm.
you lose depth, right? Or tangents are important. Like, don't have things,
No kissing lines.
yeah, exactly. It does weird things. Like
Just
there'll
not
be
right.
there'll be a kid that'll do like a figure, and the feet perfectly touch the bottom edge of the painting. I'm like,
Right.
what the hell is that? Don't do that.
That's for people
Yeah.
listening. It's like if you have, let's see, if you have two objects, don't have them like this. You should have one. It should be covering the other a little bit.
Either overlap or distance, but don't
Yeah,
have them
no kissing
kissing.
lines. Yeah, distance
Yeah,
or overlap. No kissing lines.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
it's uncomfortable. Like
yeah.
you might not know it if you're not educated artistically, but if you'll it feels uncomfortable in a painting when you see it.
Oh, totally,
You know what I
totally.
mean?
It says awkward as coming home at night at your house, and there's somebody that's not supposed to be in your house, just sitting in your chair, and he's and then they start talking to you, and you're like, get the fuck out of my house, like, and the guy's just like, listen, I just fucked all your loaves of bread. What? Get out of my house. It's like maybe not that awkward, but I made it weird. I apologize. But you know what I mean. Just
Yeah.
yeah, so things that shouldn't be there. That's very very specific. I realize I'm making it worse. I'm so sorry.
Let's move on. Let's
I'm,
move on.
I'm always afraid of that. I'm always afraid of things like that. Like you ever get like a fan that says, "Why don't you come over my house and look at where I hung your painting?" And you don't know who these people are. You
Mm.
just don't know. You never know. Like, what if you go to their house and the floor is just entirely covered in plastic? And you're like, what the fuck's going on? And the guy's like, listen, why don't you sit here and read these magazines while I get changed? And I'm like, wait, why do you have to change? What the hell's going on? And then he comes out and he's just wearing a Darth Vader helmet, and like that's it. And I'm like, oh shit. Now and he's like, and the safety word is droid. You're like, oh my god, what just happened? So you have to think about these things. I'm very careful who I have to be very selective whose house you go over. These are strangers. You don't know these people. You really
You
don't.
make it sound like this has happened to you before.
It has not, but I always worry about it. I always it's just one of those things.
Yeah,
It's like
you never know. There are crazy people out there.
there are
Especially
Paul,
doing.
Paul Komodo can tell you stories,
Oh,
by the way.
really?
Yeah, but well, that's off camera.
Okay.
You ask him. There's some weird New York stuff that we can tell you about. It's not great.
Yeah.
So you just got to be careful.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I just did that. Why did I do that? I just ruined everything. Travis ruins everything. I
No,
apologize.
no, that's funny. I
But
might.
but
I'm gonna bleep out the f words. I'm gonna start bleeping them out because I'm on YouTube now.
oh, okay. I won't tell. I won't retell the story either. So like, um,
I said it like the thing is they're demonetizing stuff now. If you say curse words within the first 15 seconds, and I think I may have, so I have to go through. Oh no, I didn't. No, it wasn't with for or is it 50? Yeah, first 15 seconds. But I'm gonna be careful and just bleep them. I think.
that's smart. I think that's very
You
smart.
know.
And find out what the keywords are that they just don't want you to use.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
if something weird like if you can't use the word yam, it's like, oh my god, he said yam 3 times. You can't have that on here.
And
Oh my god.
I'm demonetized.
Oh my god. Demonetized.
So
Demonetized.
have you ever had? I was going to ask you as a teacher, as an art teacher. I mean, have you ever had like a horrible student, like a belligerent, difficult, terrible student you had to deal with? Because you've been doing this for a long time, and
You,
maybe
you get them. You get them, but you have to have a certain temperament, and you have to explain to them.
you're
Um,
able to handle them. You feel
yeah, as best you can. You just have to explain the
you've never
process to
had
them.
someone you couldn't deal with.
No, they would have to be mentally impaired for me to not deal with. I'm actually, and you know me pretty well. I'm actually pretty good at explaining things to
Yeah,
people in
yeah,
such a
yeah.
way that that they don't feel like throwing me out a window. It's just
Mm-hmm.
you know, you don't ever make someone feel bad about themselves. You try to see where they're coming from, and then
Mm-hmm.
you explain to them that the reason why their perspective is such is because this is what they see, and then you explain your perspective. And it's not a greater than, it's just a different way of seeing the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing about all artists, is that we are what makes us all different is our perceptions, right, of the world around us, and our life experience is all different,
Right.
because it just is all different.
Mm-hmm.
There are similarities between the two of us only because of the time that we've lived in, but that's about it.
Right.
After that, it changes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't imagine that you were hanging around Chinatown during Chinese New Year. I mean, that's like an
Right.
experience that I had, and
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
have a different experience.
Right.
So, and that's what colors everybody's um, existence, right? These different experiences. So if you have a student that is difficult, you try to figure out what it is, and then you ask them what their expectations are. Like, what is it that they want
Mm-hmm.
to learn, and then you go from there, because there is a need to want to do something, and then there's the ability to learn how to do that thing, right? Not everybody has it. Some people develop their skills later,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe they're not ready yet.
Right.
We all mature at different rates.
Right.
I mean, just imagine. Okay, there was a guy in my school when I was in high school who was, quite frankly, he was a genius,
Mm-hmm.
and regular school was boring to him, right? But they didn't have the funding to give this guy like a special class, because he
Right.
was that smart. So and certainly his family couldn't afford to send him somewhere. So he was stuck at my high school, and he was bored out of his mind, because everything was so, like, he would come to class and he could just look at everything and figure it all out, like, really quickly.
Wow.
That was it. And he had this crazy memory, more than mine even. He would just remember stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, this guy's amazing, But he was bored.
Yeah.
Boredom can create monsters, and he kind of was a little bit of a monster.
I imagine.
So
I imagine in art school, you get students. I would guess every semester you probably get at least one student. Maybe I'm projecting because I was this way when I was a kid, but the student who thinks they know it all, their vision is so special that they don't need, they don't really need to learn. They're just doing it because they have to, as part of their degree they're getting.
I don't get that so much in my school, because it's more like a trade school.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, they're there specifically to figure out how to do.
That seems like such a common thing with young artists.
I have kids in my class right now that can draw better than both of us.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, they're that good.
Wow.
They just don't have the ideas yet, because
Right.
that's what comes with experience.
That's a whole other. That's a whole other aspect of, I guess, any art, but specifically fine art.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
It's like, there's rendering, how you're able to render. There's all the technical stuff, and then there's the idea part.
Oh yeah,
and the idea part is as important. That's the problem with that kind of blue chip high end art, where it's all about the idea, entirely about the idea, and the craft of it, the technical aspect of it is not important at all. And I guess, as the kind of artists we are, it's like to me they both are equally valuable, and to get a great piece you have to have both. And I noticed that the teaching ideas is the more difficult thing. Teaching people.
How can you teach ideas, right?
That's
pretty hard.
I know.
How could you take somebody and go, idea? It's not like that.
Yeah, but you can do things like the way I do it, because I teach people on my Patreon too, where I do like these one-on-one things. It's not really like a class like you do, but they're like monthly meetings where I help them whatever they need. And it's more like finding tricks that help you generate ideas, like looking at things differently. But I find that the biggest the biggest part of creating ideas is like this sort of not trying. It's so zen and weird. It's like you have to be, there's this certain, you have to what they call it in I think it's Zen or Taoism. It's like trying doing without doing. It really is this weird, you have to try, but you have to like not care really that much. You have to not be that concerned about it. You have to have this sort of weird like
Yeah, that's a temperament thing.
middle
Yeah,
balance,
that's
like I
yeah.
really want to do this, but I don't. You can't put too much pressure on yourself to come up with amazing ideas. You have to kind of like let them come. It's a weird thing, but there's like but there's things like you could say. I often say go back to to come up with ideas. Go back to things that when you're a kid that you used to love, and just like look at them and be inspired by them. It's like it's so, but it's not like here's how you draw. Here's how you do perspective. It's like there's
Oh
like
no, oh no,
literal
right, right.
rules to that where coming up with ideas is so much more of a nebulous, more difficult thing to
Well, I
teach.
asked students what's important to them. Why? Okay, why would you want to draw that? Like, what is it about this that's important to you? And then they sort of do a self-analysis. I could see
Hmm.
their wheels turning in their head, like, oh yeah, maybe I should, maybe okay,
That's part of it too.
oh
Is
yeah,
like knowing
yeah.
yourself and knowing who you are is part of being an artist, a good artist. I think too.
Well, what is art, right? Art on the in the simplest form of expression, it's it's like leaving a footprint that tells people, who am I?
Hmm.
That's that's what why we do this, right? I mean,
Right.
yeah, some of us we make pretty images, but why does this guy make pretty images?
Yeah.
Why does that guy uh you know always why is he always painting uh landscapes? Why is this person like, what is it about the landscape? What is it about okay, Norman Rockwell? What is it about Norman Rockwell? Why does he always paint these things that people are very often think are kind of saccharine or whatever, it's he wanted to paint this idyllic thing
Mm.
that he thought, this is what I like.
Yeah, and he did it so well.
That's it.
He did, that's why I think great art is like when you do it so well and the idea is so good and the technique is so good that it doesn't matter that it's saccharine, or I wouldn't say, I don't think his stuff I think his stuff is perfect for what it is. It's perfect. It's perfect and what all art aspires to, Norman Rockwell paintings. But that's not my experience. I didn't grow up with those kind of in situations, but it doesn't matter because the art is so good. You accept it as on its own terms in a way, and
What's funny,
even
what I like about his paintings is that they're a window to a very specific time.
right, right,
Look
yeah,
at them and you go, okay, you know what? Okay. There's a few of his paintings I think are kind of masterpieces because
yeah, definitely.
they there's one he did where someone is putting up a TV antenna on their house,
Hmm.
and then off in the distance, similar to the television antenna, is the spire of a church, and you see the cross, and it's in the same position as the
Oh
TV.
wow,
So TV is going to replace the
that's
church
so
when
cool. Yeah.
you look at it, right? Or there's another painting he did where there was it's called Breaking Home Ties, and there's a young boy who's very excited. He's going off to college, and he has these suitcases that have all these stickers on them, because they're handed down from probably his brother, his siblings, older,
Hmm.
and they went to college before him. But then you look at the painting and you see that the father is a worker. He could see his hands. He
Hmm.
probably is a farmer or something like that. And it's not a regular train station. It's a rural train station. So next to this man there is a lantern that he probably uses to wave the train to
Hmm.
stop, to pick them up, right? Because it's not a stop that the train will normally make.
Right.
And then he has the dog with him to say goodbye, and the father looks very sad because he's like, oh, my kid is going away. It's
Hmm.
another marker in time that my kid is going off to college, but the kid is just excited, and he has this look, there's a spark in his eyes. There's an adventure that's afoot. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. That
amazing. So all that's this one painting has all this going on.
right,
And
right.
that's remarkable.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's
or
amazing.
even okay. I'll bore you with one more painting from Rockwell. This is great. It's like, I guess, sort of like the backstage area at a carnival,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like a clown, and I think there's like I don't know who the other players are, but they're just playing checkers or something.
Mm-hmm.
They're just hanging out, and you see the tents around them. So you know this is like well, I mean, they got to have time off too, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you know, and that's really cool. You know that he gives us these little glimpses into this kind of life. You know.
Yeah, I never understood. I mean, I understand the difference between illustration and fine art now, but it was hard for me to understand it for a long time. No one really explained it to me, because to me that was just amazing art. To me, it was fine art. But the difference between, like,
Right.
editorializing, editorial style of art, that's kind of the basic difference between illustration and fine art, is kind of like,
Well, you're only really describing the initial reason for making the art.
right. Yeah, yeah, true.
The
But
reason for making the art doesn't determine its value.
right, right,
There's a lot
right.
of
So
jobs
it's like the
that people did
yeah, yeah.
that have transcended the job.
Same, yeah,
You know,
same like you're saying with the car design. It's the
right?
same thing.
So it doesn't matter if I mean, it's cool that this guy spilled his fucking guts into making this painting because it's fine art, and he loves it, and it's coming from him, and it's his voice, and yada yada yada, and that's cool. But there's a good chance that that there's going to be somebody that's just not interested
Yeah,
in
yeah,
what he's doing.
yeah, yeah.
And then maybe, what if it's just a lot of people are not interested, right? Maybe it doesn't resonate with anybody.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But the illustration job has the same thing could happen, right? So that doesn't determine the quality of something.
No, not at all.
Yeah, well, that just determines the purpose.
Right. That was the thing when we were coming up. It's like illustration wasn't taken as seriously as fine art, and I never got that. It's like, to me, it's not. If it's done well enough, it's the same thing. It transcends simply, an advertisement for something. When it's done well enough,
I think of it as a piece of the culture, right?
Yeah, but
that's what it is, right?
Yeah, sure, but
that's all art.
Yeah, right.
It is culture, and what's the difference between what Henry Darger was doing,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
You've seen his drawings.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're kind of nuts.
Kinda.
But that was his state of mind.
Right. Yeah.
He's right there with the guy that is incarcerated, and he is making all these things with spoons. He's like, true outsider art, as they say.
Yeah.
Right. So there's something there about this earnestness, this need to make something.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that's kind of wonderful.
Yeah.
A lot of us have it, and it doesn't mean that it's gonna resonate with a bunch of people. It might just be this thing that this person did, and you have a garage sale at your Aunt Stacy's house or whatever, and there's this thing on the lawn that she must have painted or whatever, and I mean, it's just that's just a moment in time she did the thing.
Yeah,
and that's right.
I guess my initial point was like, when something is really, really good, it transcends its classification or category. Same can be said about, like, pop music, like a Beatles song. These were 3.5 minute pop songs, but they're songs that are so good that they become art because they're so good, even though the format is pop, which is not really a fine art. It's more. It's
you got a favorite Beatles song right now in your head? If I said Beatles song, what do you think of?
It's not.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, but it's not a big. It's hard. It's too hard. I A Day in the Life comes in. That's like one of my favorites, but
right?
there's just so many good ones. But they
Yeah.
did it. The crazy thing was with them is they did it so often, and a lot of those bands like the Rolling Stones. It's like it's amazing to make
Yeah.
so many amazing songs. You know, it's
Oh yeah.
crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's but anyway, the point was, you know, with the car, you know,
Hmm.
designing a car with Norman Rockwell with Frazetta, he's doing stuff that's like low culture, you know, fantasy book covers that, you know,
Hmm.
people don't take that seriously, but he did it so well that it doesn't matter. And that's the stuff. That's what I always try and do with my artwork. It's like I try and I want it to be that good. That's what I'm always striving for. And I love that something is so good, is done so well that it transcends its thing. Like, you know, punk certain punk songs that are just they're recorded for $20. It's like some certain things that were just done so perfectly that they're elevated above they go into this realm of what I would call fine art. It's probably not the correct term, but maybe like the realm of the sublime or something you could say. And this can happen in all these different types of
Oh yeah. Oh, most
arts,
definitely.
you know what I
Most
mean?
definitely.
Like makeup effects. There's stuff that's, you know, that's a commercial work for movies, and then you've got the Kazus and the Matt Roses and these people that would take it to such a level that it was just like, you know, when you're in its presence, you're just like, ah, you know,
You
it
know,
goes beyond what it's
speaking of
meant
which,
to be made for.
there's this wonderful effect. I always thought it was really cool. It's in the movie Ghost Story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Dick Smith did this one, and
Yeah, he did all that stuff.
it's the cadaver that comes out of the car at the end.
Oh yeah, and the skin slides off the face.
Yeah, and I'm like, I watched it again. I'm like, wow, that's kind of amazing if you consider when that was done, right?
Oh yeah, he was the
That's
man.
pretty that's
He was the
pretty
man.
incredible,
You
you
look at
know?
all his old stuff, it's like there's some really I don't know if they used them much in the movie, but there was pictures of this weird apparition of the woman with just a mouth,
Right. Yeah,
and
I've
it's
seen that.
so great. It's so amazing. And then there was also like this kind of rotted version of her that's not skeletal like the final one, but there's this like rotted putrid like kind of swollen around the eyes and it's just like so well done that it's like it's just beautiful. It's like kind of this beautiful art piece.
Did you take his mail order course?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got his acceptance letter hanging on the wall
How cool is
because
that?
I sent him my sculpture and he complimented the sculpture. I was like 16 or something and asked me how I did the lips on it because the lips were he thought were so good.
I never got to meet him. I never got to meet him.
I met him once kind of and he didn't remember me. He was an old guy at that point. But I mean, you know, he had a lot of students, so it's not like we were pals or anything, but
One of my buddies used to drive over to his place,
oh yeah.
and yeah, yeah, and pretty
He did
cool.
all that stuff in this little tiny basement,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
probably the size of my room. You know, it's like
And he was
The
missing a finger.
Exorcist, and
His
yeah,
one of his hands was missing a finger,
yeah. Well,
at least.
here I'll show you.
Um,
I have a cast of his hand.
oh no shit! Wow. Yeah,
How cool is that?
that is pretty amazing. Yeah.
They took they took this bone out. It was his ring finger, and the
Wow.
doctor took that bone all the way down to there so that it would so that he wouldn't have a weird gap there. So he looks like a Simpsons hand now, or he did.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
It looks
But
it's
he's like the father of all the modern effects guys. Is
yeah,
Dick Smith.
yeah. He came up with techniques they still use today. Pretty
You know, I think
amazing.
of Rick Baker, right? I think of the yeah, he would probably talk very fondly of Dick Smith.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was
You
his
know,
mentor.
um,
I got to get
so it's
Rick on the show, man. I he said he would come on the show, and then I haven't
you
been
could get
able.
him.
He said he would do it, and I haven't.
Is he like retired now?
Yeah, but he's doing all kinds of cool stuff. He's doing like You seen his Instagram?
Yeah, I have. I
It's
follow him.
crazy. He's doing
Like
just
he's
like having so much
painting,
fun.
like, yeah, and that's what it should be. Yeah, fun. I wish in a perfect world I would just make paintings for me all the time and
Yeah.
not have to think about the money on the other end of it.
Yeah, I would make paintings
And
and give them to people that I liked that liked them. That's what I would do.
oh, totally,
You
yeah.
know, because I
Like
got
just it just you gotta pay the bills.
yeah,
You gotta
yeah,
cover everybody, and there's a lot of overhead to live now.
yeah.
Just in general, I mean, it's like rents are really high. We're lucky we have houses,
I
but some people,
know.
they don't, they got to rent something, and it's hard. It's
Yeah,
just hard out there right now. And I don't know. I don't know where all this is going to go. I hope it goes to a good place. I don't know. But no matter what happens, I'm still going to keep painting because
yeah,
that's what I'm supposed to do is make these pictures,
yeah.
right? That's the plan right now. But that even plans change. I mean, I started out. I wanted to do illustration work originally,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't do that anymore.
Right.
Right? I mean, I occasionally the job comes in
How
and I
did
do it.
you make the transition? How did that happen? Did you just what happened there?
One day, I saw that another illustrator, Mark Ryden, was in gallery shows, and I just thought,
Another
well,
Mark Ryden. It's like Mark Ryden
like maybe
definitely like affected people of our age for sure.
and I was like, well, if he could do it, I should be able to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's not that much better than me. Maybe I got a shot. So because once you're doing illustration work, there you're just at a certain level. Everybody is at a certain level.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
just get
Just
better.
to get in, you have to be at a certain
You
level.
have to be able to do the job, right? So, and many of my friends that are in illustration are really good painters. They
Yeah.
just are
Yeah.
because it's the thing. And then it just worked out that I got on a plane, I flew out to California, and I started going around to all the different spaces just to try
Oh,
design.
really? With the portfolio kind of?
And yeah, I visited I visited
I don't
La
think we've ever
Luz.
talked about this.
I went to La Luz, and I went in there and I'm like, hey man, what do you think?
Did
I
you have
just
wait a minute, did you have your like style set on what you wanted to do yet or was it all illustration?
I was kind of doing this stuff that I'm doing now, but
So you had kind of like thought you had all this time as an illustrator and then you're like, okay, I want to do fine art, so you created a bunch of your own personal works that were like in your style.
yeah,
They
and
were a little different though, right?
it was simpler.
Oh, okay,
Now
okay.
they're much tighter now, which is a mistake, but it's
But
okay. It's too late now. No, because of the time element. It's like
yeah,
it's
right.
they're harder to paint now.
Yeah.
But what I'm noticing is that people can't tell the difference.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you could tell the difference,
Yeah.
but
I don't
the
know.
average person looks at my work from like 2001 and thinks it's the same as what I'm doing now.
Right,
And
right.
I'm like, no, it's not. I mean, I see things. I see certain things in the
Yeah,
work.
always.
Um,
Yeah,
so
okay, yeah.
I was at La Luz. I saw Billy Shire,
Mhm.
and I was over at Copro Nason Gallery. Doug Nason still had a stake in the place, and
Did you talk to Gary? Or did you talk to
I,
like
I spoke to Gary. I hadn't met. Yeah, I hadn't met our friend who has passed away.
yeah, Greg?
Greg. Yeah, I didn't meet him right away.
How was Gary?
He was
He
great.
he wasn't very
He was
nice to me
great.
the first time I met him.
He was talking to me
He was
about
kind
some
of
place
like
called the Key Club and a guy named Elvez. We
yeah,
were talking
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah,
that,
yeah.
and then somebody that I'd met on Facebook just happened to be there. It was Stan Ridgway from Wall of Voodoo. He
Oh,
was
no
there,
way.
and it was just by chance. He just
Weird.
happened to be there, and I met him, and he said, hey, it's like I follow you on MySpace. I know I follow you on MySpace. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
We're
how
talking,
cool.
and then yeah, and
Yeah,
I was
when I met Gary, when I met Gary the first time, I was dropping off that soft spot sculpture that had, that
oh wow,
sculpture I did, because that was like the first thing I did, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do sculpture, but I was like,
right,
I did it, and it was like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to make any money doing this, so I switched to painting. But it was for Liz McGrath's haunted dollhouse show she curated,
oh wow,
and I remember dropping it off. Chris Grimley was there. He was dropping his piece off, I think, and that was the first time I met him. And then Gary was like, totally like oh, cool. Go, just put it over there. It was
Wow.
like, totally blew me off. And I'm sure it was because they were like putting a show together, and it was before Erica was around too. Erica's definitely been a good influence on Gary.
Well, I think so. I think so.
Because she's like, he's like the more the business guy, and Erica's more the, more personable. Although I love Gary. Gary's awesome. He's like, they're both great friends of mine now. But it's
Well,
just funny that it
I
started
met
off
everybody when I
in a
went out
weird
to
way.
that one trip. I just met everybody. I went around. I mean, even I was a gal. I would talk to Jensen at Gallery 1988. I was talking to. I met Mary Karnowski in the old location when it was. You
Oh
know.
yeah. Mm.
And then I even talked to Andrew Hosner because
Mm.
he was doing something called Cannibal Flower at the time, and that's when I
Andrew
met
was doing. He was.
LC
It was.
LC and
Yeah. I guess
and
they did that before ThinkSpace.
before ThinkSpace, yeah. And then eventually I got a piece in just about every gallery.
Mm.
One piece for every. There was a group show at this place, a group show at that place, a group show here because I had to see.
It was
And then
so
the
crazy
first,
how active it was back
yeah.
then, man.
But the first person to actually give me a solo show was Kirsten Anderson over in Seattle.
Rockwell.
She was like, you know what? I think I could do something with this. So she gave me the show. It sold out. And then Gary Pressman was like, well, if you're going to do a show there, then you got to do a show here. So then I went to his place and he gave me a show. And then right after that, Justin Giarla in San Francisco was like, hey, man, you want to do a thing?
Oh, that's that guy that scammed everybody. The guy for
And
Shooting
then
Gallery.
I ended up having a show at the Shooting Gallery.
Did you get
And,
ripped off?
and no, he actually paid me. Back then he was doing really well, so everybody was getting paid. It was only toward the end that people were getting scammed or whatever happened.
Yeah.
But while I was there, he was paying me, and it kind of worked out. So then I got more shows at Gary, and then finally Mary Kainowski was like, I see you've got some traction going on. Let me give you a shot. So then I was showing there, and I'm still there.
Wow. How many years have you been there?
I've been there for 10 years now. Easily.
Wow, I can't believe it.
2011, my first show there. So it's 12 years now.
Wow.
And
crazy.
But
I remember when you were. I remember when you went over there. I remember, and it doesn't seem like 12 years ago.
No. Well, the first time I met you was at Copro, and there was a group show, and you said some nice things about my work.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I met Lola. Lola was there.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty cool. And we've been friends since.
Yep.
We're pals. We talk about the same stuff. I mean, I remember going to your house and we were watching that Dan Curtis production,
the Norliss Tapes.
Yeah, and the craziest thing, because I love that stuff. I remember seeing that as a little kid and just being surprised, like that is so crazy,
that ending,
that scene where he rips the door off the car.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very impressionable little boy. Yep. I had just seen a made-for-TV movie called Gargoyles.
Yeah, Gargoyles was great.
And there's all these really crazy slow motion shots.
Yeah.
And you gotta understand, if you're a 6-year-old kid, that is like nightmare fuel.
Yeah, it's like the real thing. It's like you're looking at.
It's like, oh my god, what is going on? So I see that, and then Dan Curtis's other big thing was the Night Stalker.
Yeah.
And that was on ABC, and I watched all of those, and I was like, I didn't get it. I didn't get how cool the show was until later.
Oh man, I loved the Night Stalker.
I watched the show, but then as an adult, I watch it later and I go, I love what Darren McGavin was doing. He was like this wisecracking guy, and it made it funny. Like he's doing the best he can with that material.
Yeah. I don't understand why they haven't done a good remake of that show. It would be so perfect. I have a theory on how, because they did one in the 90s apparently that sucked, but
well, they did it wrong.
Yeah,
they did it. I mean, whoever does these things, everyone's trying to do an update or whatever, and I get it, but maybe there's a certain quality of the original that you want to hold on.
I think that what they should do is they should do it as a period piece set in the
Mm-hmm.
70s and like really do it, like recreate everything, get actors that are similar, really kind of.
If you're listening, Sony, Viacom, or
I'm
whoever owns
telling
the
you,
rights to it,
the thing is,
you,
it would be great, but it probably wouldn't be a huge hit. And they always have to have everything be a huge hit, but it would probably be a cult thing later because
I
that's
would
just my
totally watch
taste.
that show.
Oh man, but
I would
think
get like
about it. Put it in the 70s period piece. Do
1970s.
the
Get
same.
William H Macy to play him,
He's too
and
old
no,
now.
no, he'd be perfect. I think he'd be
I think he's
perfect.
too old now, though. I just saw
And
an interview with
he
him. He's
might,
looking
he
pretty
might,
old.
he might
But
be too old.
you do it, and you have the same, because the stories were cool. Like the ideas were cool. You just do everything. You rewrite the scripts where you need to. There was a lot of like weird fat shame. There's a lot of like fat jokes I noticed, and like just
Yeah.
things that are not cool nowadays, kind of sexist stuff.
Well, you could,
But you
if they
just
really wanted to, they could
update it.
update it, but they could change the location.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you could probably do the show in England and have like Gary Oldman play the guy. And
No, 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 no.
but
I'm fine. No.
it's still 1977, right? 76.
I mean,
You know,
I would watch it, but I think it should be,
yeah.
I think it would just be so cool to just
It
kind
has
of
to be
like
American.
just
And
like
it has to start in Las Vegas,
yeah,
yeah. You've seen the
yeah,
pilot
of
in
course, yeah,
Vegas.
of course,
There's some great actors in that
yeah.
in the
There's
pilot.
all those old
Oh my God,
character actors.
Ralph Meeker's his friend at the bureau. Remember?
I don't remember Ralph Meeker. I have
And
to look him up.
the surgeon is the Undertaker guy is played by Larry Linville, the guy who plays
Oh
Major
yeah,
Burns
yeah.
in MASH, and Claude Akins plays like the sheriff. This is before Sheriff Lobo, so he's he's there.
Nobody knows what we're talking about.
No, and I'm like, what is this? What it does not compute.
Okay, Ralph Meeker.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
No, it's we know, but yeah, it's I don't know.
It would be
I wish
great.
I was like, oh man, the world would be such a better place if I had Elon Musk's money, because I'd make a bunch of cool shit. I would make the remake of Night Stalker set in the 70s. I would hire all my friends to make amazing artwork.
Right, right.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine what you'd do with that kind of money?
Oh, the things you could do.
It's like I feel like God wants this world fucked up because he won't make any of us let any of us good people become billionaires.
But
that would ruin the game. The game is about struggle.
It's a weird place, and even back then, it's also a weird place. If you think about what people got away with,
man, in the 70s,
you watch like marketing gone wild, right?
Oh yeah,
like somebody thought, we know what to do. We need to make a Star Wars Christmas special. Have you ever actually seen that thing?
I don't know if I've watched the whole thing, but I've seen enough to realize I can't believe how bad it is.
It's remarkable that someone like okayed that.
Yeah.
And I watch it and I can't believe it.
Oh man, you look at a lot of that 70s stuff, those 70s variety shows.
Like 40 minutes of just the fake Wookiee dialogue. It's no subtitles, nothing. As a kid, I had just seen Star Wars, right, in the theaters, maybe during that summer.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there and I'm watching this show and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is going on?
Man, look up right? Those old, like, what?
And then Art Carney shows up and Harvey Korman shows up. And I feel like it's almost as if Harvey Korman kidnapped Art Carney and B. Arthur at gunpoint and made him do the show, because the stuff they're doing is like crazy, And then there's a scene where I just saw this recently. That's why it's like fresh in my mind. There's a scene where Art Carney is in like a shop buying stuff, and some guy working for the Empire shows up, and he's all like, hey, he's all being tough and stuff. And he's got, that Darth Vader helmet that those guys like they wear the big, but it's like on him, his head was really small. So on him, it looked huge. Right. He looked like he was wearing, I don't know, like the Ronco Pocket Beauty Salon or something on his head. It was like this giant thing on his head. and he's trying to be a tough guy. And he has like the little mousy mustache. And Art Carney's looking at him like he it's almost like he didn't know what was going to happen. And he can't believe what he's looking at. He's just like, the hell's going on? Who's this guy? Why is he here bothering me? Listen, and Art Carney's just his dialogue seems like he's making it up on the spot,
Man.
and it's
But
amazing.
that's the thing about, if you look at 70s sitcoms and 70s variety shows like Donnie and Marie and all that stuff, it's so bad. It's so stupid. It makes stuff, I mean, it's like, it's
Are you
so.
referring to the Pink Lady and Jeff show
Yeah,
that was on?
yeah.
Are you familiar with that? That was
Yeah,
that was a real show.
I know, I remember.
And
It was all just
every
like
network,
trash. It was
every
so
network had,
bad.
it was all variety shows. Every network had a
Yeah,
variety.
and they
All of them.
sucked. They were so.
I think CBS had the most variety shows on their dot. No, they did. They
I
had
believe you.
they had Tony Orlando and Dawn had their own.
Yeah. I remember
Sonny
that.
and Cher had theirs. I was on the air at the
Yeah,
time.
I remember.
Mime was big, so Shields and Yarnell had their variety show. No, these are real shows.
I
really
was there. I remember.
And
I used
Carol
to
Burnett
watch
still
them.
had her show, but
Carol
hers
Burnett
had more sketch comedy in
Yeah,
it, so it
was
was like
kind of
funnier,
funny. Yeah.
you know. But there were just so many of these things, and you just can't believe it. You're like, oh my god, why do they have so many of these things?
And
Even as a little kid, I'm like, man, why are there so many of these things?
they
Yeah,
sucked.
and I was like trapped because my brothers made me watch Donnie and Marie on ABC. I was stuck, you know. It's
Nothing
like
you could do about it.
it didn't get better no matter who the musical guest was or whoever the guest was. They would watch these
It was
things,
so
and whether it was like
cheesy, man.
Kiss, you know, or Chuck Norris or whoever the
Yeah,
hell they had on
yeah.
there. You can't believe it.
So
You know,
corny, so hokey.
you know, it's like, oh my god, but that was real. That was the time.
That was the
right?
time. That was, that's what warped us. That's what I
But the
always.
saving grace was the 7:30. For was it 7? Maybe it was 7 o'clock after the news on ABC at 7 o'clock the night in New York. Anyway, the Night Stalker came on,
Yeah, I don't remember.
and that was
when
the
it was
show.
on.
That was the
Yeah.
show that went on right before Donnie and Marie, and I would sit there and I'm like, this is great. You know, he had his little pen light. He's fucking,
The theme song's awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was great. There was a lot of great. There was great. A lot of great.
Well, they tried to do that with the Norliss tapes. Dan Curtis was like, "Well, I'm gonna."
I know that's another great concept. It's like they should do again.
But it didn't catch for whatever reason, and we're stuck with it now. I'm sure you're familiar with this other show before all this. It was Dark Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
That was Dan Curtis's other show.
Yeah.
My wife just saw like all of them. She watched every single episode.
I want to watch. I want to watch them all. I've been meaning to. I have them. I think
they're a little hard to watch.
I know
the first season, but then it gets better.
Okay. Because I know Lisa was really. She used to scare her really bad when she was a kid watching that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it makes you really appreciate it if you watch it now. It's like, oh yeah.
Okay. Do you remember one? Yeah. Okay, and then we're gonna get off because, like I said, anyone under the age of 50 is not gonna know what the hell we're talking about. But do you remember a show with Gary Collins called Sixth Sense? I think it's called Sixth Sense.
Sounds very familiar. I believe that was on NBC.
Yeah. And then they repackaged them into Night Gallery episodes, like on the second or third season or something.
Oh yeah.
Because I remember I remember seeing like I don't know if I'm mixing things up, but I remember seeing like a head in a box in one episode that scared the shit out of me so bad on the Sixth Sense. I think that's what it was called, Sixth Sense.
Well, there was that, and then there was all those crazy made-for-TV movies.
Yeah. Like,
you worked on a remake of one of them.
Yeah. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark.
Yeah, that one with Kim Darby.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Timothy Hutton's dad, Jim Hutton, was the husband in that, right? And then you had the actor who played Uncle Charlie.
Oh yeah.
William Demarest, he was the I don't know why I know all this.
Yeah, I know.
Information.
I know.
I'm not smart or anything. I just can't. I keep remembering everything.
Same here, man. I know all the names of like.
Yeah, I can't use this at all.
Producers and
like
from the 70s.
It's like if I get in a car accident, I can't be like William Demarest. That's not. It's like, well, I can't.
It's because it's just because we're nerds of a certain age. That's just
nerds of a. That's a great title for a sitcom. Nerds of a certain age,
or autobiography, a nerd of a certain age.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so
did you when you were so also you probably also looked at the Starlog, right?
Yeah.
So you looked at all those concept illustrations that those guys did, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're looking at Sid Mead, and we're looking at Ron Cobb. Remember Ron Cobb?
Yeah.
And who was the Star Wars guy?
I
He did these really cool paintings.
Yeah, I remember those,
Yeah,
like the land
yeah,
speeder.
there was that guy, and then you had all the stuff for Alien. So you're looking at Mobius, Gene
Yeah.
Gerard, and you're looking at, of course, Giger for the first time.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the show that we're going to be part of,
Oh
right?
yeah.
That
Yeah, yeah.
exciting?
Let's promote the show.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so excited to be working on that.
That's yeah, we're gonna be in a
It's in March.
Giger tribute show in March
Yeah,
at
it's in
Copro
March.
Gallery.
Yeah, and pretty amazing that we get to do this, because I haven't painted like this since the 80s, right?
Do you have your piece figured out?
It's going to be a take on one of the assignments I gave my students.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like a puzzle. So
Hmm.
I one of the first assignment for my illustration class this year was they had to do an illustration that had a puzzle in it, a solvable puzzle.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
you had like mazes. One kid did this amazing illustration. It was like she made a construction site that everything looked like Jenga on purpose.
Ah,
Like
cool. What a great idea.
and then you had someone there's always going to be somebody that does a maze, like a hedge maze, like the
Yeah.
Shining, kind of. But some of the object find illustrations some of these kids did and they had it was amazing. So I'm going to do something kind of like that,
Okay.
where you have all this stuff, and you have to find the objects in the painting.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll even leave a key so you can locate the objects.
Oh, that's fun.
I think that's what I'll probably do, because I got to make it fun otherwise. Because I don't actually work like Giger, so why would I? I'm not going to try and work like him.
Well, that's I design. I've got mine designed. I just have to paint it. I did a little study, and then I did a Photoshop, and I've got the design. So I just need to paint it.
Do you know if can we talk to Gary? Do you know if Paul Komoda's involved? Because we should get him in on the show.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a good
Because if there was a guy, he worked for him.
Yeah,
if there's a guy that could do it. Me and Paul know. We used to have to work with a guy named Les Barony, which was like Giger's agent.
Yeah, yeah.
I even had to retouch a Giger piece.
Oh yeah, I remember. I think we talked about that in the last episode.
That's a whole other thing, So
I'll hit him up. I think he's got to be in it. I'll ask him.
I don't think he is. I didn't.
Really?
He wasn't on the list. So I would ask Gary and Eric and go, hey, this is Guy, and he used to do jewelry and all kinds of things for Giger. That's the guy.
Yeah, yeah. He should be if anybody.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. What I did is because I was talking to Gary. It's like I don't want to do a biomechanical. I don't want to do I want to do something that is something I would do anyway, and just sort of have it be a tribute to Giger in a certain way. And he was like, you don't have to paint like Giger. You just have it has to be. It doesn't have to be super strict. Like you don't have to paint in Giger style or do a version of his thing. So I just did like cool kind of Giger-y colors, Giger-ish slightly colors, where it's like I don't know. I guess I ended up going a little more blue greens and stuff. But I put like pipes in the background, rusty. It's like my version of Giger's influence on me, sort of in a way. So I don't know. It's close enough. It's going to be a cool painting though.
Well, I love this one interview with him where it was for the, I believe, Poltergeist 3. Does that sound right, or is it Poltergeist 2?
Maybe.
It's the one where they had an actor, I guess Craig Nelson, Craig T. Nelson. That's the guy's name. He looks inside a bottle of tequila and the worm is in there.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that Giger said in the interview when they were doing he says that he is afraid of worm in his body.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, just him saying that is enough. I'm like, oh, wow. Oh my god, I'm sure we've all seen pictures of what happens when worms, take over insects' bodies and things.
I just sent you my painting.
Yeah,
my Photoshop.
Yeah,
I heard a little buzz.
Yeah. Then my other option, if I don't do the puzzle, will be not unlike this toad hole
Yeah,
that
that's
I'm
so
working.
cool. Total.
So it just because sometimes people have toad holes. That happens.
What's
I don't know
that
why.
for?
That's for the LA Art Show.
Oh, right, LA Art Show. So
We're doing
is that a drawing or a painting?
that's a drawing right now.
Okay, and so you're going to paint that?
I'm gonna put this. I'm gonna stick this image in my opaque projector and project it onto my board, and then I'm gonna paint it.
Okay.
So I just had to make the little boy's face just right,
Yeah, it's
and you know he's got a little bit of a Mona Lisa smile. You know what I mean? He's like he is somewhat pleased that the toad is in this head,
yeah, it's kind of perfect. It really is.
but I had to give his head enough room to fit the toad,
Yeah.
right? Because you can't, where's his brain gonna be, right? So that's why his head is so big. You got to think of these things; they have to make sense, you know.
That's great.
Like this, and I don't actually project the drawing. I scan it first.
Oh,
This is
okay, and
what
then it adjusts
so
the contrast and
to
all that.
adjust the contrast, and then I just trace this onto my board.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the little. He's got some like birthmarks on his head, and then the toad's very pleased that he's there because toads, they want to be happy. So
Toads just want
there's
to have
that.
fun. That's how I did
Yeah,
this one.
yeah.
I projected it. It's like so because I had the photo and it's just like, man, this is so much easier just to project it.
Well, it is. I mean,
There's certain types of
try drawing this on your, just freehand. You want to project this.
yeah, that's the thing. You
You know,
work it out in the
that's a lot.
drawing or the study, and
Yeah,
why
totally.
there's no need to. There's certain things that are good to do freehand again. To do freehand, and certain things I don't know. I've been doing more. Per, really figuring out my concept and having a really almost a finalized digital painting and then projecting it and then tracing it in India ink and then just painting
Well,
on
what
top
what
of it.
what happens is you're really composing, right,
Yeah.
the image and getting it exactly where
Yeah.
everything
I'm
you want to
trying
be,
to,
and then
it's because I'm
and
trying to
then you
make it
just you know how to paint, so you kind of know what you're going to do, like
right.
painting wise. Now you just want to get the drawing to go there and to have the same structure that's in the
I just
drawing.
want it
You
to
know, a
be,
basic
I'm
structure.
trying to just refine it and make it as good as
Mhm.
possible. And
Of
so
course.
that's kind of where I'm at in my, as a painter,
Yeah.
people go through different stages and it's
Are
not
you
like
so? Are you
one.
actually using an opaque projector, or you got a projector attached to a laptop?
I got one of those HD video projectors and it hooks to my phone
Yeah, yeah, because
over
the
Bluetooth.
yeah, it's pretty amazing what you could do with those.
Yeah,
Uh,
they look great.
yeah.
Yeah, I have like it's funny because I bought a projector, one of those ones that holds a picture about this big, like a
Uh-huh.
5x7 or 4x6 picture, and
Right,
you
right.
you put the kind and it reflects and it projects a light. It's a cheap ass thing I got. I got it right when I started painting. Like I'm gonna need this. I bought my easel. I bought that thing. And man, that thing is such a piece of crap compared to this video projector. It's like I can't even believe I ever used that thing. It has to be
You know, I,
pitch
al- I always I
black
always tell the
in the room
kids
to work.
about those projectors because the one that I use is 30 years old.
Oh yeah.
It's an autograph DB400. It takes a piece of copy that's 8.5 by 11
So
piece of
you
copy.
have like a good one, maybe I guess.
Yeah, pretty old school. I mean, literally, this is what fits in the projector, the
Oh,
size.
that's nice.
And then I could make it. I could make that 6 feet if I wanted to.
That's
You know,
cool. Yeah.
but I mean, I don't work that big because I don't have room.
Or
Uh,
time.
right now, I was trying to explain to anybody about to paint something that big. It's easy to paint the top of it, but try painting the bottom.
Yeah.
How much, my ceilings aren't that high. So how
I
low do I have
know.
to
I
crouch to the
know.
ground,
I know.
and I'm getting older, so my back, you know, it's like it's a lot.
Man, I
Um,
really do want to do some big paintings, but I don't
yeah,
know. I'm limited to what I could probably do. Yeah,
right.
I've got my lights up here too, so
You
that's
don't want to
even
be
lower
like,
than the
the
ceiling.
guy with the cane. There once was a crooked man, and he
Yeah.
painted. That's not great. Not good for anybody. Um, oh yeah. But one of my illustrator friends, his name is Mark Teixeira, and he works in comics too, and he's pretty good at it. Those of you that collect Marvel comics, you might have heard of him. He actually buys a lot of action figures for the lighting. Isn't that amazing? He buys action and then he lights them all.
Oh, that's cool.
That's his reference, and he photographs them, and that's, I always think about that, man. It's a lot to build something, because you always hear of some artists that actually sculpt everything just to get the lighting right.
Yeah.
And then they put
I
a
would
light
love
on
to do that. I would love to do that. I just don't ever have the time.
Who has that kind of time, right?
Yeah.
Gurney does that sometimes.
Yeah, right. He's another one I want to get on the podcast. He's amazing.
He has many things, but he doesn't have his kids are all grown up now, so he's got more free time than me.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot. You could, when you have to cover a bunch of stuff, we'll see. I mean, I remember when my daughter was really little, it's like I just couldn't work that as hard as I could work right now.
Yeah.
She's off at school right now, so I could actually do a little more.
Yeah.
But when they're little, I mean, you spend a good part of your life just like saving them from stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Like, oh my God, don't touch that high voltage. Like whatever. It's like, oh my God, that's sharp. Oh no. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to constantly keep an eye on them.
Oh yeah. Can't just be like, listen, here's a map, here's a screwdriver, figure it out. I used that to like a 3-year-old. That'd be crazy. And that kid ends up growing up with an eye patch and like plans. You know what I mean? And you can't have that. So you gotta raise them right. Well, you remember you got some kids. So,
yeah, I got grandkids now, man, and they're getting old, like to the point where you don't need to watch them. They're like 11 and 12. Insane.
Just like that.
Yeah. And I met them we met them when they were 3 or 4, because they're like step grandchildren technically, but they don't ever know, not knowing us, because they were 3 and 4.
Well, that's terrific.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Really something about that, and watching somebody grow up,
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing too when you're older, because I had kids, or I had Fritz when I was young, so and you're like still trying to get your career going. It's just hard to it was just chaos trying to do that. But when you're older,
yes,
you can see
Liz was really little when I was flying out to Los Angeles.
Right.
She was a little kid.
Yeah.
And my poor wife had to look after Liz while I'm just like going around trying to hanging out. Old Gil's got to make a sale. Oh, come on, Gary. Could you put a painting in the can you do it a little bit something maybe over there? Hang it over. I mean, whatever. And I'm still here.
Yeah.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot to do that. It's a risk.
We took the gamble and we made it.
Made it. We're still here.
We're still here.
We are the survivors, and there were a lot of us.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of the originals from that moment, and that was a great moment in time, wasn't it?
Yeah. I was talking to Brandy Milne about this when she was on. I think not the last one, podcast before last. And just talking about how there was this whole group of people and so many artists, and then some of them fell off. Some people you just didn't hear, they just stopped doing it. And it's a trip to see who kind of who went where, who did what, who stuck with it, who bailed.
Well, it was a unique moment in time. I wish people had documented it better.
I know. That's another thing I was saying is there's got to be video of it, of the Cannibal Flower shows, and someone should do a Cannibal Flower documentary, because they really kind of started the whole. I mean, Laluz, Copro, they were there early doing these shows, but
everybody
Cannibal Flower was kind of
there was the first wave, and that was lowbrow. That was before us.
Yeah.
And then we're talking Eric White, showing at Mary Karnowski, and Todd Shore, in the first incarnation of Todd Shore, as a fine art painter. There was a woman, her name is Niagara. She was around. Then there was it was the first time I'd ever heard of Liz McGrath. First time I'd ever heard of Anthony Ausgang. First time I'd ever heard of Gary Baseman doing fine art. I knew who he was from illustration, actually, because he was in New York. He was And then you had Tim Biscuit was around still,
Mm-hmm.
and Glenn Barr, and the
Yeah.
first time I seen Glenn Barr's work, so lowbrow was the thing, and that was what was going on. You had Keith Wiesner was doing these hot rod paintings, and
Yeah. I
this
had a
guy
show
named
with him. Yeah.
XNO, XNO,
Yeah. Yeah.
the Piz, all these
Yeah.
guys were around. That was like a thing, and that was all before us,
Yeah.
And a bunch of those guys were working in animation. I know Glenn Barr and Keith Wiesner were working at Warner Brothers.
Mm.
And at least I know Keith was. He was working on Batman, the
Mm-hmm.
animated series. Wonderful drawings, by the way. Have you ever
Mm.
seen those drawings he did? And he'd be a great guest, by the way. Keith Wiesner,
Yeah.
or Glenn Barr would be amazing. You get
Yeah.
Glenn Barr.
Yeah. Yeah.
All these things that they're working on.
Yeah,
and
that's a good idea.
It's a chicken or the egg thing, right? So we all go out there, and then you have these different factions, right? You have different galleries. So you have the artists that were at Gallery 1988, and that would have been Luke Chu,
Mm-hmm.
Greg Simpkins,
Mm-hmm.
a guy named Joe Ledbetter. Remember him?
Yeah.
Thomas Hahn was around. They're starting to do the toy thing. Bob Dobb,
Yeah.
right? And then sort of you sort of started seeing the next set of artists show up, and that would have been like Audrey Kawasaki and Amy Soul and Brandy Milne and Kukula was around at that point. Lola was around also. You were around and I was around.
Yes.
Yeah,
these were all the people I met at Cannibal Flower.
Yeah.
That's kind of where that's where I started. That's where most of these artists started. I think you probably didn't have to go the Cannibal Flower route though. You probably skipped.
I tried. Actually, I did try. I went out. I asked, but they were like, no, because you're not local.
Right.
So
right.
It's harder, and I get it. It's harder to ship.
Yeah, because you had to take it the day before the show.
Right.
Saturday was the show, and then you had to pick it up Sunday. And if you didn't pick it up Sunday,
and,
it got stored in a warehouse somewhere.
It's tough, to drive down to Kennedy Airport, get on a plane, fly out to Los Angeles, and then I'm driving around LA like an idiot. Like I don't know, there's no. I don't think there's even GPS yet. I'm just kind of like, I have a map.
Thomas guide.
I'm looking around. I'm like, I can turn here.
Yeah, that took a lot of courage to do that. To go, I mean, I can't imagine just flying out to New York and going and just hitting up a bunch of galleries and driving around and not knowing.
I don't know. I mean, I gotta try. I have to try. And
it's cool that you did it.
We came from this group called the Art Dorks.
Yeah.
Familiar with the Art Dorks? So that was me and Sean Barber, Stephen Daly.
Oh yeah.
Right. And
you're making me feel so old.
Dave Chung. Remember him?
Oh yeah, the Chung.
Yeah. There was what the hell's his name? Chris Mostyn. You ever hear him? Chris Mostyn? No?
Sounds familiar.
And then there was another Chris. Oh, I'm a terrible person. Why can't I remember this guy's name? And what we did is we would, and my friend Mark Elliott, we had group shows, and each of us was responsible for wherever the group show was. And you already had like 15 artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's cool.
Kind of worked out. So one of the locations was ThinkSpace. And Andrew Hosner was like, well, let's see what the hell happens. And it worked out, right? So I should have asked him. I bet if I had asked him, he probably would have given me a show, but I didn't ask him. Andrew. I went with Gary because I thought I could relate to Gary. Plus Gary's stories about Elvez and the Key Club were far more interesting to me. So
the mentors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, I love hearing his stories, and there were these two girls working there at the time.
Yeah, I remember.
And then there was this wonderful Koji Korean taco truck that would come by.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they were on Twitter, and I would always know where the truck was because the tacos were delicious. Yeah, and we would go, and that was the first time you and I were in a show together.
Yeah,
it was that show, and it was a lot of fun, and it was great, and what a night, and
good times.
Things were good because everything was selling. Everybody's stuff was selling. People were
all your stuff was selling. My stuff wasn't selling like your stuff.
It was like
You were
just
having
people were just
sellout
doing,
shows, man.
yeah.
I only started having sellout shows like 2020,
It
2021.
was the thing, and yeah, and then they expanded. So then you had other people showing at other galleries in other parts of the country.
And then the
That would
galleries
end
all
up,
started like,
that would end up on the West Coast. So you
yeah.
had uh Jonathan Levine had a space called Tin Man Alley, and
Yeah.
in that space he had Jeff Soto, Brant Peters, and Kathy Olivas. Now
Mm-hmm.
eventually those two moved, they still were showing in LA. And then there was a couple of other spaces, something called Ox Op. You ever hear of them?
Mm-mm.
That was a gallery. And then you had something called Track 16. Does that sound
Oh yeah,
familiar?
track 16. Yeah.
That was a space. And then, there was a place called Mendenhall Sobieski Gallery.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
is it Michael Hussar or Michael Husser? How do you pronounce his name?
I would say Husser, another guy I wanted to get on the
He was
show.
showing there. He had a show there at the time. And
Okay.
then we were all in Juxtapose magazine. That was another thing. Each one of us had an article in Juxtapose.
Yeah.
Had an article. I had an article.
I
We all
only
had
had an article because I got lucky because they were they something happened and the article didn't get finished that they were going to put in there, and so Greg goes, "Hey, do you want to be in Juxtapose?" And I was like, "Yeah," and because they weren't paying attention to me at all, and he's like, "Okay, we got to do an interview. I'm gonna have Nathan Spohr do an interview with you." And they had to submit it the next day, so it's like it
wow.
was Greg asking me questions, and then no, that's what it was. Greg asking me questions, and then Nathan Spohr like transcribing it over the phone. It had to be done just like that. Like, okay, I'll interview you in an hour, and then it was like that's the only reason
Wow.
I got into Juxtapose. It was because of
Wow.
Greg. Because of Greg.
Did they do the photo shoot? They took you. They went and they photographed you and all that.
I think I sent him a photo. I sent
Yeah,
him a
because
photo of me
they
and
actually
Fritz.
they actually sent a guy, and we met him at the oh my god, at the Chelsea Hotel in New York City.
Oh, cool!
It was on the top floor, and they took all these pictures of me.
Wow.
Which this is like a face for radio. So if you look at the magazine, they didn't use any of the pictures. It's just a picture of the back of my head with my glasses, and that's it. I look like Cousin It, and it's to this day I think it's hilarious.
Oh, that is
That's
great. They used to
so
be such a good
yeah,
magazine, man. It's really a shame.
yeah.
Shame what happened.
And then this toy thing happened, right? So then a lot of the artists were doing toys,
Yeah.
like with like Monkey King, and
Yeah.
then there's a whole giant robot contingent, and that's a whole other, I don't know if you're familiar with the fanzine, right?
Yeah.
There's a great documentary about, by the way,
I think I've seen it.
giant robot.
Yeah, I think
It's
I've
pretty
seen it.
cool, and that's where you see, David Cho,
Mm-hmm.
right, and Luke Chu, of course,
Yeah.
and a bunch of the artists that used to work with Labasse Projects over in Culver City.
Mm-hmm.
So we're
Yeah.
talking like, well, I don't know who's there. There were a few. There was like a handful of these guys. They're pretty good artists too. One of them that stands out, his name is Yosuke Yamamoto. You ever hear of him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty cool guy. Pretty good artist. It's I should reach out to him. I haven't spoken to that guy in years now at this point. Yeah. In fact, we were at Baby Tattooville with him that time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't familiar, Baby Tattooville was an event put together by the late Bob Self,
Yeah. I can't believe
where he
Bob
gathered
Self
all
died.
these artists
It's
together,
crazy.
and it was like this moment in Los Angeles, right? All this is going on. So there's Taryn McPherson, there's Lola, there's myself, there's Chet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Glenn Barr, you know, and there's Michael Husser,
Mm-hmm.
and Yosuke Yamamoto, and Gary Baseman,
Yeah.
and Coop was there.
Oh yeah. That's where I met
Coop,
Coop. And Stephen
Coop
Daly
was
was there
there.
too.
Yeah, he was, and it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, it was like
It was a good time.
they would get these, it was art collectors, a small group of art collectors. You pay, I don't know, like a pretty good hefty
Yeah,
price for the weekend, and then Bob Self would put everybody up in a hotel room, and a bunch of artists and a bunch of collectors, or not even a lot. It was like I don't even know how many. It was like a small. It
I mean, it
was
wasn't weird. It wasn't like, listen, Chet, you got to rub that guy's back. It wasn't like that. It was more like,
no,
it's
no.
like,
It was like it was
what? Do I
like
get to wear gloves at least? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's like
it
he's got
was
lesions back there.
it was like art collectors that were
Oh yeah,
had the money to spend on something like that, and they would we would all interact, and then it was like artists and art collectors, and they would have little events, and it was at this really cool hotel.
it was. And we each did a thing for each. We each did a little, like my thing was I was working on a show, so I invited him to watch me work on the show. So I
Oh
was
yeah.
painting
Mm-hmm.
in my room. I turned my hotel room into a studio, and I
Oh
was just
yeah.
working. And they would just come by and ask me questions,
Yeah, it was
about
cool.
the process. Um, how'd you get the idea to do this? Why are you painting this? What is your link to the 19th century? All that
It's
kind of stuff.
weird that Bob Self and Greg Escalante are both dead, because they were
Yes.
two of those kind of guys. They were kind of like these guys that were trying to elevate the whole scene up,
Yep.
and they were
Yeah.
connecting artists with galleries, and like really kind of helping artists out, and connecting artists with collectors, and they were in for the love of the game 100%.
Yeah.
Both of them were. It's really
It
such a
is sad.
bummer, man. It's
It
like they
is a
were such
bummer.
a huge, they were so important to the scene,
Oh yeah.
really, especially Greg, because Greg was like started Copro back in the day, and or he's
Oh yeah.
with and yeah, and he was, he didn't need the money at all. He never made any money from Copro, because he had a good job, you know.
He
Copro just like kept itself
yeah.
open, paid for itself.
Yeah, but he loved artists, and he loved to promote us, and he liked this idea, this sort of uh just almost like, I hate to use the term, but like punk rock way of doing things.
Yeah.
We are, in a way, we're like the outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
Yeah.
mean, we didn't really even have uh like it didn't matter where we came from. We were welcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I thought it was this wonderful time that I would love it to continue, but we're all kind of all over the place now.
Yeah, we're have lucky to have experienced it when it happened. These things they can't last. They wouldn't be special if they
But
lasted.
I mean, do you still talk to some of the regulars, don't you? Every now and again,
Yeah, I've
or
mostly for the podcast, but
yeah.
I mean, I'm still, when I go to shows, I see him around and stuff. So, but it's very, how it is now. It's just like we're older, and I don't know. I never leave my house unless I have to.
Well, I will tell you, I'm doing my best to stay in communication with everyone.
Oh, that's
Because
cool.
that's what I do, right?
Yeah,
So
that's what this podcast has been for me. It's a way to kind of stay in touch with
because
people I probably
I
wouldn't.
still talk to Greg Simpkins, I still talk to Luke Chu, I still talk to
I gotta get Greg on the podcast. I've never.
Eric Nakamura over at Giant Robot.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Kirsten Anderson. We talk all the time about art and what's going on out
That's
there, how
cool.
weird things are. You know, I every now and again I get a message from Gary Baseman. You know, such as it is. He's a cool guy. I mean, I think he still talks to me because we both come from an illustration background, so
Mm-hmm.
we talk about stuff like that. And then you have you have Bob Dobb, because he's a teacher, and he's at we're asking questions like, we go back and forth like, teach this class. What do you think? What do you think of this assignment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about knowing being in the artist community is that any question you have about anything, a
Yeah.
medium, a type of paint, where to get this, where to get that, you just
Yeah.
like are texting. You text your art buddies like, hey, how do you do this?
All the time.
You know?
I have James Gurney on my phone and like speed dial if I'm teaching a class and I need to find out something in a hurry.
Yeah, that's
And it's like
he's all you need to know.
It's like he's like like Cash Cab, where you need that person
Yeah.
you call that might know the answer, and usually he's the guy who knows the answer.
Hmm.
And if he doesn't know the answer,
You're
then
screwed if he doesn't know the answer.
no, there's other artists that I know, like that I could just call, and I know they'll have the answer
Yeah.
because just it's a different scope of knowledge that these guys have, right? A person like that knows a lot about paint,
Yeah.
and if he doesn't know it, then Marv Madison will know it, and I'll talk to him, and he'll know what's up, why that happens, or this medium or whatever. And then there's a guy that used to work exclusively in oil in acrylic paint.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with Marv Madison? He's one of the best painting teachers at the School of Visual Arts.
Mm-mm.
He's in the illustration game for a long time. Now he's mostly a portrait painter.
Hmm.
But
How do you
he's very
spell his last name?
Madison. That's Mattleson. Madison. Marvin Madison.
Okay.
He's pretty amazing guy. He knows a lot about the paint. And if he doesn't know something, then you talk to Jim Gurney, and he knows. And then there's and then if it's just like drawing questions about drawing.
Wow. Yeah, he's great.
The guy that I talked to is Carlos Fuente.
Oh yeah,
because he knows
another guy I want to get on the podcast. You're mentioning everyone I want to get on the podcast,
and he's terrific.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And then there's Wayne Barlow.
Another guy.
He's great. He knows a lot about some things. He knows a lot about shapes. Talk to a guy about how to put together shapes. It's that guy.
Yeah,
he knows all about it. He's terrific.
He's amazing. Super nice guy too.
Yeah, I'm just like giving you a list of people to put on your show.
I know.
Yes.
I just realized it's 3:20 and my stomach's growling, so I gotta wrap it up. My stomach's going.
We could talk for hours.
I know. This is how it is with this. Made me think it'd almost be worth doing a whole show with your memory and the time we came up. It would be amazing to do a whole show of kind of the history that of the whole scene. Although you kind of did it, but we just kind of only scratched the surface. But
we just scratched the surface. There's a lot.
There's a lot
of artists, and if you would like, I could write down everything.
That would be cool.
And then we could have a talk about it.
That would be awesome.
Talk about the connection between San Francisco and Los Angeles and Seattle.
Yeah,
Seattle's important.
Seattle is. I know it's so interesting because it's like we came up in this certain time period, and we're just like going by the seat of our pants, trying to navigate and figure out and do paintings and trying to make a living. And all this,
still doing our regular work. You were still doing
right. And so it's just happening. It's just happening.
You were were you at Mike Alizaldi's place at that point?
I started it when I was at Rick's.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I was at Mike Alizaldi's.
Conceptual?
Yeah. But
I was still doing gig posters. I was working for Les Claypool at that point.
Oh, right. That's right.
So I was doing that.
Frog Brigade. Yeah. But it's
Whatever
like you it all happens and you don't stop and like take stock of it all and realize it's like, man, there should be a documentary or a book about this because it's so interesting how there's these different areas and it's like, certain areas had more stuff happening than others, but there was these connections between gallery owners and artists, and it's really interesting. It's really interesting. So we definitely should do that. That would be a really cool episode. Just focus exclusively on that. And I'd have to rely completely on your memory because my memory's gone. I'd just be going, "Oh yeah," the whole time.
I remember that. Oh yeah, that's right. And we weren't even like, oh my God, it was such a different time. It really was. I still remember you telling me about going to get fish tacos, and then we got, we were doing that.
Yeah.
I remember part of it wasn't just painting; it was food. Like I could do the whole thing on food, especially with Luke Chu. He has a great. Like, of all the restaurants and all the stuff.
He's got the most amazing. I got to meet him he took me to this dumpling restaurant. So good. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. He's a guy that would know. He knows where all these places are.
Yeah, it was amazing, and it was in Arcadia, I think. Anyway,
Oh yeah.
so, well, thanks for coming on, man. It's so great to talk to you, and
Sure, man.
I
Anytime.
could keep going for days. We could go for days and days and days, but yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. Let's do that episode.
We will.
That would be awesome. Anything you want to
All right.
promote before you go, other than the Giger show? And
Well, I mean, I have a show. Like I said, I have a show coming up in September in New York. I haven't had a New York show in a long time, so
yeah,
there's that.
what gallery?
It's with Ken Harmon. You know
Hmm.
Ken Harmon's place.
Mm-mm.
He used to have a space called Hashimoto Contemporary, but in New York, I don't know if it's it may be Harmon Projects or maybe Hashimoto Contemporary. Well, I don't know what he named it because the gallery. It
Hmm.
used to be like a pop art gallery, but it isn't anymore. Now it's just showing what. But he's a great promoter. He's really good at it.
Cool.
I'm very pleased with the way he's doing things. And then I have a show going on over at Erica's space called in the Haven Gallery, and that's over in Northport, Long Island.
You got a solo show now going on?
Well, it's a smaller one.
Okay.
It opens up in May, and then the other one is going to be in late fall in
You're
New
doing
York.
two solo shows.
Yeah, one's bigger than the other. So, but I always do that. Don't I always have two shows every
Yeah,
year?
I used to do that too. It's just crazy. I can't
Uh,
afford to do that though.
I do what I got to do.
I can't. It takes too much time. The thing with me, it's like I get on a groove making money, and then I have to stop everything to get the paintings done. It's like it's hard for me to do both, and
Uh-huh.
and I probably, if I was more disciplined, I probably could, like, okay, this time I devote to this time I devote to
Well,
the.
a couple things. I still teaching
Yeah,
something
yeah, you got,
a
yeah, right,
teacher, and then I'm living off the money from the show before. So
right,
between the money from the show before and the teaching, I'm able to get by
right,
to spend time working on the bigger thing. And in between all that, I still have I still sell prints for my
right.
website. People buy prints and it keeps the lights on. So those of you who are interested in my work and want to buy a print because you can't for whatever reason you missed a painting at a show, please buy a print. Go to my website, www.travislouie.com, and go to the prints and collectibles section, and you will find some prints there,
Excellent.
reasonably priced, and sometimes there's sales. Oh my God, there. Did I just
Cool.
do that? I sure did.
Yes.
All right.
No, that's perfect.
Um,
And we'll have it in the show notes and everything. So the only thing left is to say is goodbye. Say goodbye to the
put
audience.
your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
Goodbye, everybody.